Hey guys, good morning. How are you? Thanks for being here today. I am Megan Fox, your medium smart journalist, alt-right Oprah, as some of them say. And I have an exclusive interview for you today. I'm going to pull out my best Barbara Walters, and we're going to try and get to know this interesting and special gentleman who I have been talking to for a while now during the Laura Owens saga. Unfortunately, Mike Marraccini is one of those guys in this story who got a really raw deal. And, we think that Clayton had it bad, Greg had it bad, but Mike put up with it for about 2 years and he's ready to talk. Mike Marraccini, welcome. Welcome to the show. How are you today?
Good. Thank you for having me. I really, really appreciate it.
You're welcome. But before we go way back, I kind of want to ask you what yesterday was like for you. Walk me through that day.
Yeah, absolutely. Uh, so yesterday was pretty surreal. I would say it was a bittersweet moment for us. I woke up in bed to Clayton's text. He sent like a pretty long text, and I woke up and I read it, and my wife was still sleeping, and I woke her up and both started crying. To be honest with you, it was a lot of tears of joy because justice had finally pulled through. Um, but it was also, I feel like, the first domino. So it was a moment where I felt vindicated from the hearing yesterday or from the ruling yesterday. But at the end of the day, like it was great for us three guys to be able to come together and get that ruling because that's what we were hoping for.
Yeah, and I mean, you couldn't have gotten a better ruling. It was everything we wanted, including referring Laura Owens to prosecution. She could be facing 2 felony charges, actually more than that, because each case of perjury comes with its own charge. So
Mm,
depending on how many if the prosecutor decides to go forward, depending on how many instances of perjury they find, she could be facing, I can count at least 3 or 4. She could be facing upwards of 5 felony perjury charges and several evidence tampering felonies, which is it's a felony 6, I believe. So yeah, these are very serious. This can be very serious. 1 felony perjury charge comes with 1 to 15 years in jail.
wow.
So if she gets 5 of them, she could be looking at some serious time. And do we think that that's going to happen? We don't know. But the
Yeah.
prosecutor in the case, her name is Rachel Mitchell. Rachel Mitchell, I did a little bit of research on her, a little bit of background. She's a very interesting character in all of this. I don't think we could get a better person for the story arc than Rachel Mitchell, to tell you the truth. Her background is actually in victim services. She represented and worked on behalf of rape victims and women and children who were victims of sexual assault. So she actually has a special interest and an annoyance with fake and false allegations. I would believe that would make her very angry because of how damaging it is to real victims. And we now have Laura Owens, the judge, showing that Laura Owens made an allegation of rape against Clayton Echard that the judge did not believe, that the
Mm,
court did not believe in any way. And I
yeah.
think that it's very interesting that the prosecutor, has that background. Why would I do research on the prosecutor? Well, she's an elected official, 1, and she's up for reelection, 2, and 3. I want to know what I'm headed into, and we're going to be starting a campaign aimed at that prosecutor to let her know what the community thinks about this case and why she should take it. The fact that the prosecutor is an elected official means that she answers to the people, and especially the people of Maricopa County. So Maricopa County, those of you residents out there, you have an opportunity this Saturday, the 22nd, to meet her. Right? Is that Saturday? What day is the 22nd? Is it Saturday? She will be at City Hall doing a meet and greet for constituents. Yeah, that is Saturday. And at between 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. And anybody who's in town can go into this meet and greet and actually introduce yourself to her. She'll be talking to constituents that day, and you can tell her why this case should be prosecuted and why #prosecute Laura Owens needs to happen. Mike, have you considered actually reaching out to the prosecutor there to tell her that you're a victim of this woman and see if she wants to talk to you?
I had no idea that a prosecutor was already assigned. Just, I want to say that first of all. But yeah, 100%. I would definitely
Yeah,
reach
the
out to
county
her.
prosecutor is the one the judge referenced in the order. She's sending it
Got
to the
it.
county prosecutor's office, who is Rachel Mitchell. And, it's interesting because it's an election year for her. So
Did not know that, but yes, I will definitely reach out. I'm sure the other guys will as well, because justice is still needing to be served. Only one domino has fallen so far, but more needs to happen, I would say.
So, what I'd like to ask you, what I'd like to start out with, I think a lot of people are sort of familiar with your story. You met Laura several years ago and had a relationship with her, a romantic relationship that was the longest relationship of the other men. The other men were like very short lived.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
kind of lived through a couple of years of this with her, and you probably are the one who knows her the best. And
Yeah.
while we don't need to get into anything super personal, one of the things she accused you of publicly, very publicly, was domestic violence to the point of, choking her into unconsciousness, to giving her epilepsy. That's what she's made these claims that
Yeah.
these interactions with you gave her epilepsy. I want to ask you, so you can get it off your chest here. Did you ever abuse or batter Laura Owens?
No, of course not. It's completely fabricated. I mean, everybody's asked me that I've come across. I mean, my family's asked me, my wife has asked me at times because she's so convincing. But no, I would never do that. I grew up with all women, and that's why the relationship I felt like dragged out for so long is I was trying to be kind. I was always trying to be there emotionally for her. But no, I would never get to that point. There was times where I was definitely frustrated and I would say not as kind via text message, but I was never like emotionally abusive or physically abusive. I was always, trying my best to make sure that the individual didn't hurt themselves. And, to be honest with you, I believed her for so long. And I would talk to my family about it, and they were kind of naive as well. And they would say, I can't imagine why somebody would lie about these things. So try and stick with her. And it finally got to the point where like the stories just weren't making sense. But we can go into that in another question. But I never physically harmed her or was emotionally abusive either.
Well, one thing that we found in your text messages that I have published and that are out there, the text messages that you turned over to a forensic analyst, an expert who downloaded everything and verified that everything came from her to you, and nothing was changed or fabricated in any way. One of the things we found was a text message to you from her telling you about the first time she had a seizure.
Yeah.
And her explanation to you was, I think I got this epilepsy from the car accident I was in, where she had sued. She was in the middle of a lawsuit with Uber, and she blamed them for giving her epilepsy. Cut to several years later, she's blaming you in a TEDx talk for giving her the epilepsy that she just got while she was dating you, apparently. That's an interesting thing. How did you feel when you saw that text message? And I'm not even sure if you remembered that it was there. I know I went through, was looking for, I was searching the word epilepsy and seizure to see what I would find. And I was blown away by that.
Yeah. I didn't remember the correlation between the car accident and the epilepsy. To be honest with you, I still have never watched the TED Talk. I watched maybe 30 seconds of it at one point. And the reason why I watched a piece of it was originally Greg Gillespie's attorney, Woodnick, reached out to me and told me about it. And that's a whole other story for another day. But I immediately, when you told me, is when I kicked it up and I started watching it. And my wife has watched it. I feel like the whole world, a lot of the JFC community has also seen it, but I've still never watched it. But going back and rereading some of the text messages, I mean, I know that I suffered trauma, let's just say, from her because I blacked out so much of the messages. I mean, it was just constant conflict and chaos. So I definitely forgot that at the time. But like thinking back, she says it was a car accident. I have multiple videos of her falling off horses where she is completely concussed, knocked out. I mean, my family was even at a horse event with her when she was riding and fell off the horse, completely knocked unconscious. I wasn't even there. But going back and seeing that text messages about the car accident, I think she was just trying to, maximize her lawsuit is the way I look at it. And I think in her original motion against me, she says like I told her to take advantage of like a lawsuit and say she was more hurt than she was, when that's not even the case at all. And she texted that to me.
Yeah, you said something about not remembering a lot, like blacking out a lot of it, like not, forgetting it. I know we've kind of had that conversation a couple of times where it's like you say, I didn't even remember that, these things that are in these text messages. And I can imagine that would happen in a traumatic experience. Have you ever talked to anybody about it and tried to figure out like, why is this happening? Why don't I have these, but why don't I remember this so at all? Because I don't know, is it just trying to move on and forget this awful experience? What do you think?
It's exactly right. I mean, I've seen a lot of therapists over this. My wife's a therapist, so I've had a lot of conversations with her.
I didn't know that. She's a really lovely lady, by the way. Sweetheart.
Oh, I know. She told me to say hello to you. Yes. I mean, when I go back and I like reread the messages, obviously it ignites a memory and I'm able to remember like what happened. But I've tried to move on in my life. I mean, I'm happily married. I have a child. I tried to just put it past me. And for years, though, I suffered, why somebody would try to do this to me, because I always thought being kind at the end of the day would set you apart. And I don't want to say nice guys finish last, but I really felt like I got the bad end of the stick dealing with her and just always trying to be kind. But to answer your original question, and sorry for rambling here.
No, you're not at all.
It's I've just tried to move on, and so I think that makes me forget quite a bit of it. But like I said, rereading the text messages that took me like 2 weeks to read through them, because I had to keep stopping and just thinking to myself, why would you do this? Like, why did you put up with this for so long? And it was just like a very traumatic experience, just even rereading it.
Yeah, I was kind of having the same as I was reading through it, and I still haven't finished it. I had to stop reading it. I got to like page, I don't know, 1500 approximately. And I quit reading it because I was feeling emotionally exhausted by her. Totally exhausted. And it's like
rapid fire of the same questions over and over. And it's like, you're like, I've answered this 100 times. And so yeah, I can see how you would be exhausted just being an audience member. Imagine being in my seat.
No, I can't. I can't even imagine it.
Yeah. And then I had her family reaching out to me.
How old were you when you met her?
Oh gosh, the math of this. Like, I can't even tell you when I graduated college. So I probably would have been in my late 20s at some point. What this would have been.
Had you had any other like serious relationships before her?
Yeah, I had, but like obviously very healthy relationship dynamics. Yeah, I had like college girlfriend, a girlfriend in my early 20s, but nothing like this ever in my life. But I had been single for quite a while before I met Laura. So I went from like my early 20s relationship and I was single for years and then met Laura.
Did you feel, maybe looking back, that her father's status in the community where you were and the way that she would use him and kind of dangle him and his connections over you, did you feel that that may have been part of that web that kept you trapped for a while? Because I noticed I have a whole
Oh yeah.
file of her text messages that I call financial manipulation. And it's like using her dad and his connections and celebrity and things like that that they're connected to like rope you in tickets to fun events and like
Mm.
things that maybe you wouldn't be able to go to because Ron Owens is this celebrity, this local celebrity. How did that affect, the way you saw your relationship, do you think?
Yeah, I think it definitely affected it. I mean, she knew a lot of high-powered individuals, so I always wanted to end it amicably. And that's why I felt like it dragged on for so long, because I was always like trying to be the nice guy and trying to end it peacefully with her. But yeah, I mean, the connections of which they had, like the people that they would be going to dinners with, like they were very well connected, and I did not want to be on the wrong side of that, which couldn't be further from the truth of what ended up happening. So, um, yeah, I always respected Ron when I was dating Laura. I thought he was a really kind individual. He had declining health, but she would dangle that carrot above. I don't know if you ever read those text messages, but
Mm-hmm.
she'd
Constantly
talk
with my dad is sick and he's in the hospital, and it would
yeah.
always come up at times when you were having some kind of tiff or
Oh yeah.
going back and forth, and then suddenly there would be some emergency with dad and she'd use
Oh
that
yeah.
over to keep you in control. Like, you need
Oh
to
yeah.
support me right now because I'm going through this thing with my dad.
Yeah, she would always have something. I mean, like I said, he had declining health. I forget what actual disease that he had at the time, or still has probably, but it would cause him to fall. And I don't even know if this is true now, even looking back, like thinking about it. But he would fall. She would send me photos of him in the hospital or his injuries, and heck, for all I know, it could have been years prior that she was sending me these things. And I remember he had a cast for a while when we were dating, so I think obviously one of the falls was truthful, but yeah, she would always dingle the carrot. If somebody was sick, I remember like even at Christmas of 2016, when she was threatening to harm herself, she was talking about how this is going to be her last holiday with her dad and to please be around. And I'm obviously dealing with my dying stepdad, who ended up passing away a few months after that, but. Um, I just remember she was always trying to dangle some emotional carrot to try to get me hooked back in, and it was really challenging. Thinking back on it.
Yeah. I I'm very in awe of you, actually, for moving on with your life the way that you have after
Yeah,
this terrible experience. I mean, here you have a woman who accused you of impregnating her with twins. Again, we had
yeah,
the twins thing. She also told you that she had cancer, that she had an ovary removed, that the abortion failed twice, tried to
yeah,
take abortion pills and had an extreme reaction, and then it only killed one twin, and then she had to go in and get a DNC, but that didn't work either. And
yeah,
this dragged on for months and months and months. All of these things that happened to you, as I'm reading through this, I'm going, there's no way this guy ever picks up a phone to call another woman ever again. And that no way does he take a chance on another woman after this.
yeah,
But you did. You ended up, you're married to this lovely woman now, and you have a baby. I did ask, one of the things I asked her when I was talking to you guys in Arizona was, what was it like? When did you tell her that you had this thing. Because now not only did she accuse you of all these other things, she made a TEDx talk about you. She got a restraining order against you that is still
No.
valid to this day, that she keeps renewing. This restraining order basically saying that you're a dangerous person and you can't be anywhere near her. It has affected you personally, professionally, and then now you're meeting a new woman. How do you even have that conversation with her?
Yeah, I told her really early on. She was making a joke one night. I think it was like on our third or fourth date, probably our third date. And she made the joke to me about like, hey, how's a guy like you still single? Like, especially, I think I just turned 30. So she was like jokingly just saying like, how are you still single? And I told her, I was like, hey, I'm going to tell you something because I don't want this to come out months down the line and, be in a, in a pretty intertwined by this point. But I said, like, I am dealing with somebody who has a restraining order against me, which is completely fabricated. I think, you don't know me well after 3 dates, but like, this is my side of the story. This is obviously, I'm going to be going to court against her. And so I looked at it as being honest out of the gate. And I give her so, like, looking back, like, God bless her for believing me. She was also going through some pretty difficult emotional, like some emotional turmoil. Both of her parents ended up passing away in the months, after that. And so we were pretty bonded emotionally. Like, I had, lost my father, so I was helping her out with her losing her dad, and her mom passed away a couple of months later. But she was also there as like a soundboard for me to be able to talk to. And so like we had more of an emotional bond rather than, I mean, we definitely were attracted to each other physically, but it was something where we just became bonded and so close, because we had gone through so much in such a short period of time in our relationship. So I felt like we were kind of unbreakable. But to answer your original question, I told her, I think, on the third date, and we had a long conversation. We went for hours after that about, why this individual would be doing this. And so that's why I feel like when her therapist kind of came out, and we still talk about it. I would say not often as much anymore, but we still talk about it to this day, especially with everything happening in the court system.
Yeah. What was it like for you when that restraining order was first placed on you? What Take me through like how it affected you. What did you what things did you suffer? Did you have job losses? Did you have
Oh, yeah.
awkward conversations with HR? What was that like?
Yeah. So let me like kind of tell my side of the story, like leading up to it,
Sure.
because I think it's important for people to grasp. So I ended things amicably with Laura. Like, everything was fine. She was telling me she missed me. I would, wish her happy Thanksgiving. Like, I was, trying to be kind because, again, I knew who she was connected with. And I didn't want to ever be on her bad side. I told her I was like moving away, which I ended up doing. It just didn't happen until later on. But I started seeing an individual in between Laura and my wife. And, she was great. We were going out to dinner one night, and it was raining in San Francisco. And, like when you're going out to a restaurant, there's like the big glass front. And so it's raining and it's dark. And I walking into the restaurant with my girlfriend at the time. And I think I saw Laura, like, and so I wasn't really sure because it's so dark and there's rain going in the glass, and she's sitting at a bar seat looking out. And I walk in and I look over and I see that it is Laura, and the hostess, like, we have a reservation. The hostess sits us down, and we go and sit down, and within like 10 seconds, I'm like, hey, there's somebody in here. I definitely don't want to see them. I don't want them to see me with you. And it's like, we got to just get up and leave. And so my girlfriend at the time was like, no problem, like, no questions asked, we'll get up and leave. And so we leave, and thinking to myself, like, hey, like, I know we've been wanting to try this restaurant. I'll take you back tomorrow night because there's no chance that Laura will be there. So I make a reservation for the next night. We go back in, and they sit right next to Laura and her mom.
Oh
And
no.
Laura was pretty smart. I was obviously calculating the situation. she went up and introduced herself to my girlfriend at the time. My girlfriend then told her first name. And that night, what happened is she then started reaching out to this girlfriend and saying that that's when it all started coming out, that I was abusive and I raped her and I took her within inches of her life. And
Was that the
obviously,
first time you heard those allegations?
yeah, that was the first time. So it was all
Oh
like
my God.
retaliation. And so I immediately thought to myself, I'm like, okay, do I take a step back? I'll just focus on having a conversation with my girlfriend at the time and not like retaliate. Like, I'm not going to do that. Again, I'm trying to stay in good graces here. But I could see how Laura would be upset. Like, I told her that I was moving away. I ended things amicably and it just wasn't right for us. And I'm now seeing a girl probably like 5 or 6 months later. And so the next night I'm going out with my sister and I'm literally explaining to my sister, and it sounds like we're eating out constantly, but it was 3 nights in a row where we ate out. And so the next night I'm leaving the restaurant with my sister and we're walking out of the restaurant, making a right to go back to my sister's house. And right there is Laura, right when we walk out. And my sister like told her to stay away from me. And Laura said, like, I tried to threaten her within inches of her life. If you talk to my sister, I didn't say a word. I sat there silently and just said, like, hey, like, let's go our separate ways. I'm sorry. Like, you two need to stop arguing, but let's go our separate ways. That's the night I called the police, though. I was like, okay, so she's messaging my girlfriend. I feel like she's stalking me. I need to just go. Like, we need to like have like somebody in the middle and essentially tell us to like stay away from each other. So I called the police that night, and then the next day or 2 days later, a restraining order was filed against me.
But
So
wait.
Yeah,
Hold on. You called the police.
yeah. I
What
called the
did
police.
they tell you when you made the report?
They came to my place that night and we talked about like what was happening, and they said, that I should go and file a restraining order against her. And so I queued it up if I was going to. And I got on the phone with an attorney because I think the following day, like, I was like, hey, I'll go in and I'll file this. But I was thinking to myself, like, do I want to file this and like, poke the bear? Like, is that what I'm trying to do right now? But when I talked to the police, they said, like, essentially there's nothing that they can do. There's no crime being committed. Even if she's reaching out, like, there's nothing. And there were some weird things that happened after that, where I think it could have been her trying to, follow me and do, certain things because she always knew where I was. But
The
point
chat
being,
thinks she put a GPS on your car. You can get those things at Amazon. You just stick them underneath the metal.
yeah, with San Francisco though, you don't drive much. I personally think it took me a long time to figure this out. I think back in the day, like Snapchat, you could like essentially see people's location as they were moving. It was
Oh
called
my
like
goodness.
ghosting, and it would show like your friends of like what location you're at. I personally think that's how she knew,
Oh
because
wow.
she knew, like, I mean, some of her things would be like, he ate at this restaurant and I was right, within X amount of distance of him and he violated this restraining order. I'm sitting there, I'm like, how would somebody know that? Obviously, I thought to myself about social media, like Instagram and things like that. Like, and so that's why I never post on social media anymore. I don't know if you follow me. I know a lot of people have tried to follow me recently, but I don't post. So, and I also don't allow like random people to
Sure.
follow me because she's taken advantage of that, and which is sad because I can never even post my child or my wife really anymore. So it
Mm.
still affects me, 8 years later. But I forget the original question of where I was going with this, but it
That's all
was
right. Just continue
yeah.
talking about it, because wherever you go, here is fine. I mean, you haven't been able to really tell this story, so I want you to tell it how you want to tell it.
Yeah,
Um,
I would say, going back to the point about the restraining order though. So after that was filed, I had the decision if I wanted to get one against her.
mhm.
And my attorney told me at the time, like, listen, if you take a step back and you want her to go, like, she goes like, what do you want at the end of the day? And I said, I want this to just go away. Like, I obviously didn't do anything that she's accusing me of, but I also, don't want her to just feel like, she's won and that I'm just bowing down. And so originally, like, we had a hearing saying that we're going to both go to court. We had like our depositions, everything like that. Actually, she never had a deposition. I just had my deposition. And after that, it was during the height of the Me Too movement. My attorney was like, listen, it's very easy. They just hand out restraining orders like hotcakes to anybody. You're never going to win this. And I think what the goal should be is to have this go away in 2 years, like do a civil restraining order, have it go away, and just hope that she finds happiness in another person, and that she she forgets about you. And that was my game plan, was hopefully she goes and finds somebody, becomes happy, and leaves me in the dust, and to where this never arises. Obviously that was a bad move, and Greg Gillespie also learned that just being on the defensive is not the way to go about this. Clayton had it right of being on the offense, on the offense. But after the restraining order was filed, like, were jobs affected? Yes, I remember being pulled into HR almost immediately after the first restraining order was filed in 2018, to where I had to have a conversation.
You already had a job.
I had a job.
And how do you think they were notified about that?
They were called, and HR is like not going to give you a lot of information, but they said they were called. Things were brought up that were disturbing. And so I was pulled into a room. I was let go probably a couple months after that. I think that was the initial cause, because it was not like performance lacking or anything like that.
Oh my
but
goodness.
They also said that not only, they said multiple people had called in. So I assume it was her and a family member that had called in to my company. I then asked my company to have her banned from the building, because I do think she tried to show up one time and they brought it up to me. So I had her banned, like her family. I just went like full scorched earth. I was like, anybody that I know from her is being banned from the building. And like, San Francisco is a big city, like obviously the large metropolitan area, but it's really small and condensed. So you do see a lot of people. So I just tried to keep my distance. And then luckily when I met my girlfriend, she lived in a different area besides San Francisco, more like South San Francisco. So I moved and like spent the majority of my time there, and got away from my apartment, never saw my sister's apartment anymore, or any of my friends that lived near Laura. I just kind of had to go and keep my distance from everybody.
So you lost that job that you had, the current job, when the restraining order was taken out against you.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to find another job? And in the search, did you feel like that restraining order prevented you from getting one?
Yeah, there was, it's really hard to prove, but like when you go through the job interview process, you get to the point of like, after your on-site interviews and you're obviously meeting with the hiring managers and things like that, you get to the point of reference checks. And that's really where they do, like, they reach out to like your old managers, old colleagues, and also do your background check at the same time. I would get to the reference check, and that's usually like, you're in, and then I wouldn't get a call back. And it's, it got to the point where I couldn't apply to like the big companies, like especially like the really large mega cap type tech companies, because their background checks were too thorough. I had to go for like the smaller companies, because like they usually go through like a third party system where it just gives like, hey, did he ever go to jail? Does he have any misdemeanors? Does he have any felonies?
Yeah.
And it just comes back, no. But like the big companies, I'll never get a job at because of this. And that's painful, because I got to the final round with some of the largest companies in the world, like for some dream positions, and I never got them. And it was really, really difficult. Like I used to cry quite a bit, and I don't want to cry here, but like I used to think like my life was ruined because of it. And luckily I'm I've come out of that, but it still affects me to this day of like applying for jobs. When I do get a new job, I still like hold my breath, like until the background check clears. And I'm like, oh my God, please just get through this. Hopefully, if they do have any questions, hopefully they give me the chance to at least explain my side of the story. But a lot of the times they're not going to take the corporate risk, and they just say like,
Sure.
hey, we're passing on you, which I don't blame them. But it's just sad that I have to deal with that.
It is incredible, and it feels like the judge, any of the judges who like, she's re-upped the restraining order at least once that I read, and it feels like the judge does not listen to you saying,
No.
hey, listen, I live in a totally different state than she does. I am not anywhere near her. I have no desire to be in contact with her. And this is affecting my ability to care for my family. And
Yeah.
the judges don't seem to care about that at all or listen in any way to your side of the story on this. What does a woman in Arizona need a restraining order against a man in California for?
Yeah, I don't know. I know when she did the renewal in 2020, like I don't know if she lived in California or not. I don't, I even, like, I just don't know. But I know she called in because it was during COVID times and my wife was pregnant. And like the evidence that she brought that day, like I was like, oh, I'm gonna, like, this is so easy to combat. Like she said, I was somewhere. I brought the log of the gym showing I was not there and I was in a completely different city, thinking to myself, like, oh, this is a layup. This is her only piece of evidence that I violated the restraining order. I'm going to crush this. And the judge could care less. It was, they asked Laura afterwards, like, do you still feel threatened? And she said, yes. And she goes, I fear for my life. And the judge was like, all right, well, we're going to renew it for another
That's all he
5
needs.
years. That's
That's
all
all
I
he
need.
wanted.
And I asked the judge, I think like, I don't know if anybody's ever seen it, but, or if it's in like the log from the court reporter, but I said like, what do I have to show that I didn't violate this? Like, what do you need to see? And she said to me, like, as long as she fears for her life, there's nothing you can do. Um, and I remember the domestic, like Laura used the domestic violence, like attorneys or domestic violence fund. I forget who it was, but I was talking to the individual at the end because she served me my court paperwork and she was working for Laura. Like she like was Laura's representative, but she served me my paperwork at my residence. And I talked with her in the hallway and you could tell she felt really bad because she saw my wife sitting there pregnant. I'm literally telling her, like, she saw the evidence that I obviously didn't violate anything and I've kept my distance and that I'm not trying to ever have any communication with Laura. And I sat down and I was like, what do I do? Like, how do I, what am I supposed to do? And she just said like, well, at the 5 year mark, just don't violate it for the next 5 years. I was like, well, I didn't violate it for these last 2 years.
Yeah.
Like, what do you want
Yeah.
me to do?
What more
And
can I
so,
do to not violate the thing I didn't violate in the first place?
yeah. And so I had my attorney talk with that individual later, and they essentially both came to the conclusion that there's nothing you can do. And San Francisco is great in a lot of ways, but in this, like you're guilty until proven innocent. Like it's not the other way around.
This is a terrible thing. And I do have a special guest who wants to pop in here and say hello. And he may have some questions for you as well. But it's the great Dave Neal. Dave,
Oh,
how are you? You're muted, Boomer.
I have been listening and knew it would be so emotional to hear your story, Mike. But wow, to put a story to these court papers is so
yeah.
much more raw, I guess I would say. Reading your statement yesterday on my podcast, I couldn't keep a dry eye. What does it feel like knowing an audience is now hearing your voice?
It's bittersweet. I wish it was on for different reasons why they were hearing my voice. Like I don't want to be famous or anything like that, but I've always just been silenced. So it feels good, but at the same time, like it's not the reason why I wish people were hearing my voice for the first time. So
Yeah, I imagine. This has got to be very uncomfortable. And although at the same time, gosh, so much misinformation has been out there about you publicly for a really long time. Um, I want to get to some of the super chats because some of them have messages
Yeah.
for you in them. And I want to make sure that we get to those. TST, thanks for the gifted 10 memberships. How generous of you. I really appreciate that. Georgia P says, "You got this, Mike. We believe you and support you. Your justice is coming next." And I do think there is some chance, I believe, that you can get your order of protection at least set aside if and I'm sure that this community stands ready to help you with crowdfunding or whatever we need to do to get you an attorney to represent you. I know that I think Tilted Lawyer Omar Serrato wanted to speak with you. He is a family law attorney in California, and I hope that maybe you learned something there. We don't need to talk about the details or whatever, but this community is definitely ready to help you, Mike, to put this behind you and get your vindication in your day in court.
Yeah, I haven't spoken to Omar yet, but we're going to try to link up at some point. I would also love, I know Woodnick's probably tired of the Laura situation, but they know the case so well. So it's one of those things where I would love them. I know Deandra also practices in California, but hopefully one of these days I will get one of them to help me out.
That would be fantastic, Dave.
I can just imagine Deandra and your wife just shopping, looking all beautiful and powerful. Oh, she would hate to see that.
Could we, Dave? We would do another fundraising stream for that show, wouldn't we?
2 seconds. And Mike, we forget because, like I said, we're covering this court case and we're forgetting that there are other humans that exist. When I met you, your wife goes, "I feel like I could give you a hug." I said, "Bring it on in, sister. Let's go." Yeah. What was the feeling like for your wife when this grassroots movement turned its attention towards your justice?
Yeah. I mean, the way we found out was honestly wild. I think it's like so important to hear this side of the story because I felt like I was one of the last people to find out about the Clayton situation. And that kind of leads into how my wife has been here and supported me since day one. So at the end of 2023, I think it was like December, I had received a friend request from Greg Gillespie like a year prior because his attorney, Woodnick, had originally reached out to me asking for certain information about Laura. And they wanted to know like if I had XYZ in terms of evidence. And at the time I forgot about the one laptop and I had like just like the basic stuff on my phone. And I couldn't find any of the information that they were looking for. And so I kind of told Woodnick, I was like, "Hey, I don't have what you're looking for. I also don't want to get Laura's crosshairs. I have a young daughter and I am, newly married, so I don't want to be dealing with Laura whatsoever." And so at the end of 2023, I mean, when I had this conversation with Woodnick, I think it was like in 2021, but I had like a friend request from Greg Gillespie for 12 plus months. And when I'm sitting there talking with my wife and, she's been really good about getting me to talk about my emotions because I've always just bottled them up and pushed them down and not wanted to talk about it because obviously I get emotional about it. And when we're talking, we're sitting on the couch one night, we put my daughter down to sleep and we're sitting there talking about what we were grateful for in 2023, what we wish we could have changed and like what do you regret? And so like I went through what I was grateful for. I went through what, I want to change in 2024. And I talked about Greg and I said, like, I regret never having any communication with Greg. Like I've never spoken to him. I mean, even so I told her, I was like, I went through the same thing this guy went through. And I know how emotionally and stressful or emotionally taxing, how stressful it was dealing with Laura. I was never just a soundboard for the individual. I never communicated with him. I never had like one text exchange. I never had anything. So I reached out. I was like, you know what? I'm going to change that. Like, I'm sure his court case is done. I'm going to reach out to him and just check in. So I reached out and I said, like, hey, I'm so sorry. I was never there for you. And I want to just give you like my deepest apologies, because I should have never have abandoned you, knowing how taxing dealing with her is. And he wrote me back like fairly quickly, within like a minute and maybe a couple of minutes, and said like, thank you. I'm really appreciative of you reaching out. He goes, now that I'm just glad I'm here for Clayton. I was like, who is Clayton? What is this?
Oh no.
And so that's how I found out about it. I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
So you didn't know that this was going on with The Bachelor.
Yeah, you were like, what, the dancing TikTok guy?
My God.
No. So this is how insane it is. So I, like, by this time we put my daughter down, we had a babysitter coming, and we were going out to dinner that night. And so I'm reading it as like I'm getting ready to go out to dinner. I'm like, who is Clayton? Like, and what does this mean? There's more guys? Is that what this means? So I text Greg back, and I was like, who is this? What are you talking about? And he, like, we go to dinner, like, I kind of put my phone away for a second because I don't get notifications, and I pop it back up while we're at dinner, and he goes like, he was a previous Bachelor. I, again, have never seen the season, so I didn't know. So I type in Clayton verse her name, and everything pops up. And like, this is like late 2023, maybe like it was right before 2024.
Oh my God, you found out about it right around the same time I did.
Yeah. So
that's insane, Mike.
She tried to say I was plotting with everybody. I had no idea it was even happening. And so I'm at dinner, and I pull up like a Reddit thread, and it's talking about MM. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, is that me? Are they talking about me? Just having no clue like what's happening. And like they've all put all the puzzle pieces together. But my wife and I, when we originally pulled up the Reddit thread, we both started crying. Like, because I finally like felt the support outside of like my general family and my wife, like that other people were seeing that this was a sham and that she was taking advantage of us. And my wife has been so supportive since day one. And I know she gave you that hug, and you guys talked at the barbecue afterwards, and she talked to both of you. She's just always been my rock. We've always been there emotionally for each other. Like I said, like she went through a lot of turmoil in the beginning of our relationship. I've gone through it, but she's always stood by my side. And there was times where she questioned me, where she asked me, did you do this? Are you like positive you can tell me the truth? And I was always like, obviously, no, I never did anything. But even she questioned me at times, but she's always, never wavered away from me, and it's always stood by my side. And I love her and I appreciate her so much. And I wish she was here because she'd be able to see this, but she knows what she's so special.
How amazing for you to know that someone believed in you without this evidence.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
It's hard to answer because like everybody at some point has questioned me, like everybody, like my closest friends. I had one of my best buddies who is getting into politics, and he's like, hey, I can't be associated with you because of like this, in case I ever like make a run for Congress or anything like that. But everybody questioned me, but like the people that stood by my side and just knew my personality type, they're like of all people, you would be the last person to do this. Like you're too kind of an individual. And I've got buddies who are, more of like, I don't want to say like the alphas of, but they're always dating. Like they're not a-holes, but they can be. And they said like, I could see this happening to myself, but like you of all people, like you're always too kind to people. Like that's what you've always been known by. So to see that, she stood by my side and, with no evidence means the world to me. And I mean, my family and my closest friends also know how much they mean to me. And I always tell them how grateful I am.
Now, some of the collateral damage that I always think of is all of those secondary friends, like people you knew in high school, people that you don't talk to. I think we spoke about this at the barbecue, but I'm sure you find out through a lot of secondhand information that you're the subject of conversation, because who would want to bring this up to you? This would be stuff that other people would whisper. And that's the damage, is that you don't even know what fires to put out.
Yeah. I mean, when I originally posted about it, like when I was in Scottsdale a couple of weeks ago, people like came out of the woodworks and were like, I always wondered what that court case was about. Like, and so they would say, like, I was talking to a close friend who I worked at a previous company with, and she said, like, people told me to stay away from you because you had a restraining order against you, a domestic violence restraining order, and like that you are a violent individual. And so people are obviously talking about it behind my back. When you Google my name, it's one of the first things that pop up. So
we're going to change that. That should be changed now.
Yeah, I don't know how you go about changing it, but at the same time, like I've kind of come to peace knowing that there's other men and that they're able to see the evidence that's out there, and that she's never provided a piece of evidence that I actually hurt her. There's never a text message, there's never an email, there's never a photo, there's nothing. And so, like I've always said, it's like fighting a ghost. Like I didn't take a photo of her at every moment of every day, and I didn't have a GoPro strapped to my head. Anytime I had communication with her, but it's been challenging, and I still feel immense shame. I would say, even with all of us coming out and even feeling the support, I still feel shame regarding it. But I feel the best I've ever felt today, or like, every day it gets a little bit better, especially with Clayton and Greg being great individuals to talk with, the support of all of the Reddit community and the JFC community, and you two for giving me a voice. Like I'm able to point people to you guys and say, like, go watch this and then come and talk to me if you have any questions. And I sent a lot of friends to do that, a lot of ex-colleagues to do that. And like, I probably had like, I don't know, 20 text messages yesterday from ex-colleagues now who are following the case.
Oh, that's
and they
amazing.
were all like in my corner, where I guarantee before they were like, hey, did you ever, like, is any of this true? Like, is there any shred of evidence?
I feel like this ruling is going to really help with that as well. So you have the ruling that she did it in another case, and that's going to go a long way to convincing people who may have been on the fence that you didn't do this thing. Liz Wagner, thanks to the 5, says, God bless you, Mike. We support you. Can you share what was the exchange with Gingras like when the 911 call was made? So David Gingras, Laura Owens' attorney, in case you don't know, on the day of trial, tried his hand at witness intimidation to get Mike here arrested for violating the restraining order, which he didn't do because he was there under subpoena and under the authority of Judge Mata. But he did call 911. Did officers ever speak to you? What happened in the hallway there?
No officers ever spoke to me. What's wild is leading up to it, like I was approved by Judge Mata to be there. Like there was exchange with Judge Mata, myself, Greg Woodnick, and David, and like head of security, saying like that originally it was like, is this an individual who's a subpoenaed witness approved to be here? The judge approved, the head of security approved it. And then the day of court, like I walk in, I walked in before Laura and her attorney, and I'm standing there already like shaken up. Like I don't want to be here. I want to be there to support Clayton and Greg. But at the end of the day, like I just don't want to see her. I want to stay away from her. And so I'm sitting there and like I'm nervous. I have to go to the bathroom. And so I guess David walked up to Woodnick and said, like, hey, we've got a problem. Marraccini's here. I'm going to have him arrested, just so, unless you have him leave right now. And so then Woodnick comes up to me and says, like, hey, he's at it again. He's going to try to have you arrested. I'm sitting there, I'm like, I'm subpoenaed. Like we've gone over this. I was approved last week, but like, I don't know if the Phoenix police is going to believe me. Like I have got my subpoena in my phone, but I walk to the bathroom and Gringus is following me and like giving them my description of what I'm wearing. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, he's obviously trying to rattle me. Like he's doing a great job of it. Like I was petrified that I'm about to be taken out in handcuffs. And, but at the same time, like I knew I was approved to be there. So they walk me in and they immediately sit and have me sit in the courtroom. Like, you sit here, like nothing's going to happen to you. And I think like you were sitting in the courtroom, Megan, that's when I had to like walk by you, but I was completely rattled. I was like, are the cops going to come in here and take me out via
I don't
handcuffs
think I
before this
even knew at that point until you were already seated. I think that's when I found out that like there was this thing was happening. It was just crazy, and I'm glad that nothing did happen.
Yeah, I was under the impression that he was possibly trying to get you to be physical. Just because, you know, just, I mean, complete Hail Mary, but just trying to play a card that he could outside of the lines there. Now, when I read your email to Gingras, it was so powerful. How long did that take to write? Was it emotional? It was a really, really strongly worded sort of defiant stance you took.
Yeah, I was going to have a conversation with him. I was open to having a conversation. Like he was like really pressing to have like this 10-minute conversation with me. And I was like, absolutely. Like I'll do it. And then like he went on a barrage of, you know, putting out my deposition and posting photos of me and like doing a whole blog. And I was literally about to say like, hey, let's set up a conversation for tomorrow and we can talk anytime. But then when he did that, it obviously angered me because then I saw the email exchange of him wanting Laura to speak with me. And I was like, this person's terrified to be in the same room as me. And says like I remember her saying at my court hearing, like that hearing his voice is triggering. And I'm like, it sounds the opposite now because you're wanting to have a conversation with me. So when I read that, I was like, listen, like I'm not messing around anymore. Like this is now you've really ticked me off. I'm going to be there. Whatever questions you have for me, I will, you know, I'll say on June 10th. But when I wrote that email, like I went back and forth, like, you know, am I being too emotional? Obviously saying these things, like I had to take a step back and think to myself, like, is this being too harsh? Am I going to, you know, light the fire? Am I poking the bear too much? Like, what am I doing here? But I felt like it needed to get out. And I knew if I sent that communication, it would make its way to the court, which he wasn't planning on that happening, I don't think. And so to answer your original question, like I was very emotionally charged when I wrote that. And especially when he was wanting me to have a conversation with Laura.
JL says, Mike, in hindsight, are there any markers for crazy women like Miss Owens, like red flags maybe? I would not be as resilient as you if I was in this situation. Looking back, do you think there were things that maybe should have been or would be in the future a cue for you to just get the heck out, or for others to get the heck out?
Yeah, I mean, there was obviously, I felt like hundreds of cues. I think hindsight's obviously 2020. I wish I would have never even gone on a first date. But like looking back, I needed to take my own happiness into account and not worry so much about what others might do to themselves, like her in this situation of self-harm. Like I should have just bowed out and been like, hey, this is too much for me to handle. I'm sure I still would have been taken to court at some point from her, but there was many cues leading up to it. I mean, she got pregnant with, you know, in the first couple of months we were dating, but like even leading up to the pregnancy, I was already starting to pull away, and we had only gone on like a couple of dates. But yeah, there's so many cues, and obviously that's my biggest regret in life was staying around in that relationship for as long as I did and focusing on somebody else's happiness rather than my own.
I related to you so much in the way you tried to do whatever it took to, you know, put out the fires. But like you said, regretting the amount of time you spent, the tragic aspect of this was that you had a stepfather that was ill.
Yeah.
I have a stepdad that I love so unconditionally. What was that feeling like, or what is that feeling like now, knowing that your kind of attention was diverted there? Because it was heartbreaking to read those text messages.
Yeah. It was really tough. So my dad died at a young age, and when my stepdad, he was such a great guy. and he was like my one male mentor that I had. And because when my dad passed away, I was really young, so I didn't have anybody. And his name was Wayne, my stepdad, and he was so strong. Like he would tell me, like because I would have Laura on speakerphone, and like when she's going on her self-harm episodes where she's threatening self-harm, and he would say, like, this is only going to end poorly. Like you need to end this amicably and get out. Like the parents are really nice, her family seems really nice, but like this is causing you so much stress. And yeah, he died when we were in Dubai, and so I hate that he went in a coma when we were in Dubai, and I came back, and right when I flew in, I saw him take his last breath, but it was really, really painful for me. Yeah, I just wish I would have been able to spend more time with him, and yeah, I don't know how to answer your question. My biggest regret is not spending more time with him in his last months.
Well,
I'm so sorry.
I can totally understand how enraged you'd be at Gingras, because he was saying such, baseless things like, oh, you must have been enjoying her if you were in Dubai and you were on these trips. What was, I know Megan already touched on it, but like the sort of coercion to get you on these trips, would you just find out that she's got flights booked? I think you mentioned that she would book these trips as part of a sort of an apology.
Yeah. And sorry, I keep looking back and forth. You guys are over here on this screen and my camera's over here. But so yeah, she would have some erratic episode and would buy the trips as like an apology. And she knew there were certain places like that I wanted to go in the world, and so she would use that like as like a dangling carrot. And looking
Financial
back,
manipulation.
yeah, I mean there's plenty of that as well on top of this, and
a lot of that.
Yeah, she would buy these without me even having a clue. Like I would have no clue. Like she would just be like, "I booked this. I'm looking for. I know you're like starting a new job at later next month, so I bought it for 2 weeks from now." I'd be like, "Okay, like I don't think we're in the right place." And then her family would have conversations with me, and they would convince me to go, and or my family, like they would call my family and have my family speak with me, and it was just like. Looking back, like they would just completely gaslight me into situations, and my family obviously regrets that they, pushed me to go along with these trips and to do some of these things. But she would always just book it without me having any clue of what was happening. And I was naive. I was like I said, I was an idiot for letting it drag on for this long. And if I could
don't
take it
beat
back,
yourself up, because for all you were trying to do was not be unkind and continue to try and help her. And I don't think that that's a idiotic thing to do at all. And it might be naive, but I don't think beating yourself up and thinking that you're stupid or something helps at all, because anyone could be manipulated like this. And lots of people have been. And it takes a really long time for a person to admit, I was conned. I fell for a con. And that does make you feel bad. It makes you feel like you missed something and you shouldn't have missed it. But plenty of people have had that happen.
Yeah, people that are conned are just good-natured people that believe that everyone's operating with their best intention. So people are silenced because they feel shame, and then the cycle continues. But you don't have anything to be ashamed of. It's a testament that you want to live in a friendly world, and you'll be a better father for that.
Yeah.
And you'll carry on your father's legacy because of that. Because if you let, and I'm dealing with this myself, but if you let bitterness or shame cloud you, then you're just going to pass that down. So, you're doing such a great job of putting an end to that by talking.
You've been incredibly strong in this also. It's just the fact that you've survived it and you're here and you're thriving and have your own family is just a huge testament to how strong you are. Angie's Wave, thanks for the 5, says, Mike, hang in there. The truth comes out eventually. And it has. Thank you for your willingness to share. It's hard to overcome bias in the legal system. Absolutely. And you absolutely faced that along with Clayton and Greg, both of whom faced that bias. You guys are all, did you find it strange at all when you met Greg and Clayton in person, how similar you all three of you are? Like you're all about the same height and size. Strange, right? Did that strike you as odd in any way?
Yeah, it definitely did. We all met for the first time, like really briefly to make that video the night before the trial. And like, we kept it, like we only spent like 20 minutes or 30 minutes with each other. And mostly it was just looking at Greg's child. I mean, that's what we were doing for the majority of the time. But yeah, it was strange actually seeing them in person, speaking with them, because like, as much as Laura doesn't want to believe this, like we didn't have that much communication as individuals. Like we would have a random text here or there, but we would only talk like every couple of months. And I know Greg and Clayton are much closer than I am with them, but it was strange to finally meet them and to like give them a hug and to, you know, spend time with them that following at the barbecue at your mom's house after the court case. That's like where we spent the majority of our time that day.
It must have been strange though too, because you're a tall guy. How tall are you?
6'4".
6'4". You're all about 6'4", and you don't run into guys who are 6'4" very often, do you? I mean, you probably are taller than most men you meet on a regular basis, right?
Yeah, I mean, they felt taller to me. Like I felt like I was cranking up my
Looking
neck
up
to
a little
look
bit.
at
Yeah,
them.
I mean, Clayton might be 6'5", but I mean, you guys are all quite tall.
Yeah.
And I mean, I would just imagine that was just a strange thing. Like clearly she has a type. And you guys met on a dating app, correct?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we met on one of the dating apps. I forget which one it was.
Yeah, it just that to me struck me as really interesting. When you were all three standing together, I was just like, wow, this is bizarre. I mean, I only know 2 people in my life who are your height or taller. And to have three of you in the same room, it's just like, this is so crazy.
I know, Mike. I'm the first she sued who's under 6 foot tall. So that's
but we've mentioned this. You have the baseball flag.
I got that flex. I mean, she wouldn't tell me, but my question about like anxious avoidant personality types is that I'm very fascinated by it because I find that I'm one, which is I don't feel like I'm in hot water till someone's beginning to pull away from me. With Clayton, she became diabolical when he said, we shouldn't do this. With you, was there an insecurity from the top, or did she feel you pull away and then the coercive behavior began?
Yeah, so I think what she uses is when she starts to see somebody pulling away, that's when she starts pulling the drawstrings. Like with me, it was the original pregnancy, and that's why I dragged out for so long. Because she felt I was pulling away. And this was like a month and a half into knowing her, or 2 months into knowing her. And I give Clayton and Greg tremendous props that they like were able to say like, hey, you go live your best life. I don't care what happens with you. Whereas I was sucked into the vortex. And she would always use something like, you know, looking back, like I totally forgot that there was a twin pregnancy until I sent over like my verified records to the attorneys, and they pointed it out to me saying like, hey, this is the twins. And I was like, oh my God, yeah. I haven't read through the messages yet, but I went through and reread it. I was like, oh yeah, the twins are right there. But anytime she started to feel like I was pulling away, she would pull more drawstrings. Like it would be like the twin pregnancy, and then that's why the pregnancy would go on for so long. Then it was the ovary, the ovarian cancer. There was always something to be like, hey, you need to stay in this. But the one that really affected me the most was the self-harm. Like that's the one where I was like, if this person hurts themselves on my watch, Like, I don't know what I'll do with myself. It's like, I have to be there. And so then after that, it was, she used more manipulation as the relationship went on. But I finally was just like, hey, like, we're best going our separate ways. And she was receptive to that. And so at some point she knew I was just like, there was no saving the relationship. And like, I don't know how she felt like we could, like, let's just say if I had, like, my brain was completely washed. I don't know how she could ever think that we had a clear foundation to stand on later on in the relationship with everything that we had gone through. I know she uses those tactics to keep somebody there, but if she was just like authentic, she's a great person. But the problem is she's not authentic the majority of the time.
And as Meg had mentioned, financial manipulation, you and Clayton have something in common, which is he was willing to walk away from a multiple $100,000 commission, and you were willing to walk away from a $250,000 job with her. Did you think when you were signing on to run a radio show with her, did you think she was faking this, or at what point were you skeptical?
Well, I didn't put all the pieces together about who the agent was until a couple months ago, and it was her. So originally, her dad had talked to me about doing radio and Laura, because she said, I mean, even in the text messages, she said she was signed by KGO for $350,000, and she was going to be doing it. And so she said she needed a co-host to talk about like millennial things. But originally, like, they were throwing out some large sums of money, and that's what they were telling me. And it wasn't like a full-time position. I'm sitting there, I'm like, of course, yeah, like I'm interested, though I've never had an interest of radio. And after one episode, I was like, oh, we're so bad at this. Like, at least myself, like I'm never going to be in this. I'm not a good speaker. So
I disagree. I found you far more entertaining in than she was. I thought you did really well, actually.
Well, thank you.
I thought you could absolutely do it, but I know how it feels to feel like, oh God, that was awful. But I don't agree. I don't think it was terrible.
Yeah. But thank you. She used, the financial manipulation multiple times. So it was one, the radio show. Another was her parents' house. They wanted to like fix it up and sell it. And so her dad and mom would both ask me about those type of things. Like, hey, like, if we were to do this, and so what would it take in order to make it like this comparable in the neighborhood? I like sat there, and at the time I was working for a real estate development company, and like, I priced it out, and I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, oh, this is again like the financial manipulation that they use, like dangling these 6-figure checks in front of your face. And the likelihood, obviously, at the time I gave it was still low, but I thought maybe there's a chance that this would happen. But that also, the radio one was really triggering, because like I never talked with somebody on the phone. The guy always said how busy he was. Her dad, though, was part of it. Like, and I always thought it was real, because her dad like would mention that he spoke with his agent about us. So I was like, oh, this is real. And then when I put all the pieces together that she was actually running the email of this agent, I was like, wow, I'm not shocked in anything anymore, I guess. So it's just crazy looking back and seeing the financial manipulation that she uses and holds these carrots above you, and to try to keep you interested.
Good Lord. Dana says, thank you, Megan and Mike. No shame, Mike. Never anticipated an iceberg with this depth. Guessing posse mobilized. Thanks, Dana. Appreciate that. And let's see what else. That girl said, hi, Mike. I did try to express something serious, but felt it was shut down. I kind of have been through what Mike and Gigi Clayton have been through, but I've been silenced. And to be honest, I don't know what to do. It wasn't really a question, but we'll move on. La Jordan, thanks for the 5. As emotional as this whole case was, this is the first time I've sobbed. Mike, we're here for you. Looking forward to donating to your legal fund. Yeah, me too. And I think that if that's something that you want, I know Dave and I will definitely do a fundraiser for it. Jen, thanks for the 50. Says, much love to both you and your wife, Mike. You deserve happiness and peace. Yeah, I agree. Reality Squad says, great to see justice prevail. I imagine that as much as you didn't want to be in that courtroom, Mike, you had to have felt some kind of relief that finally the world was hearing some of the things that you had been through. What was it when you were in court? Were there any moments that stood out to you? Any highlights of the trial or the questioning that really, either got to you or made you happy or feel good or bad or anything?
I mean, reality set in when I pulled up to the courthouse and there was a line of people. And I saw Dave outside and it's like out of the van. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, please just don't run into her. Like, that's all I'm thinking about. And when I got in, there was, again, a line of people inside in the hallway right outside the courtroom. So that was pretty surreal. I was already like pretty rattled, I would say, because I was nervous to be there. And then following up like minutes later, Gringos is trying to have me arrested. But the questions that in the courtroom, I was just taking it in. Like for the first 30 minutes when she's on the stand, I sat there and I thought to myself, like, she's gonna get away with this. Like, she is gonna get away with this. She can be so believable at times. And like, obviously then when the cross-examination happened, I was like, oh, she's done. There's no way she's winning this. And then I think her expert gets on and I'm sitting like, this guy's delivered 20,000 babies. Like, oh my gosh, like this, like, how do you doubt this guy? And then Woodnick's, expert gets on. I was like, oh, this person's much more believable. And then Clayton gets on. But at the same time, like at the end of the day, it's like you're watching like just blows being traded back and forth. I'm not an attorney, but there were certain things, certain aspects in there, certain questions like that she would answer where I was shocked by. I think the whole crowd erupted in the courtroom when she said like it's a minor detail that I
Just
changed,
a minor
or
thing.
minor
she
thing.
Didn't actually see doctors that she said she saw under oath. Just minor perjury.
I think that at that point, that's when I was like, oh, she's toast.
She's toast.
And so, but at the same time, like she just couldn't keep the web of lies straight. And I think I'm so happy that Woodnick's team, like Isabella, Deandra, were there because they just had her backpedaling the whole time, and it was incredible to watch.
This is a really interesting question by Liz. She says, Mike, this is starting to feel like a family affair. It sounds like her parents were complicit in kind of, stringing you along as well. Liz wants to know, what part in the family does Laura's sister play? And do you believe that she's complicit as well?
Yeah, I've seen this online. I don't know why people think she's innocent in this whole matter. She's 100% involved with this stuff, and maybe she's distanced herself, in the recent years. I don't know, but back then, no, she was 100% complicit and would enable it to happen. She would message me asking me to help Laura out, to listen to her. Not to the point like of her parents, where her dad's asking me to say and do anything, and he'll get me out of the relationship. But her sister was definitely complicit and enabled Laura. Like there was many times in which she could have stepped in and helped out. And even if you live on the East Coast, you can still have phone calls with people. And she made it sound like that just was never possible. But I also think she enables her, and I don't know why people let her off the hook.
Get that it's like the whole family enables her. They're either scared of her or just find it entertaining. I don't know. I don't know. I wish I understood it. I just can't. I'm a mother of 3 children, and I come down hard on my children when they lie and fabricate things, because children do. And you have to shut that shit down. You have to make that stop, because if you don't make it stop, they will continue to do it forever. And if they get away with it, they'll continue to do it. Because guess what's easier than telling the truth? Lying. Guess what's easier to do than, face up to your responsibilities? Don't. And all children will behave that way if you don't stop it. And so it's confusing to me, because I come from a family that doesn't put up with that would not stand behind a child who did that. I know my father used to tell me, hey, if you ever get arrested for anything, I ain't bailing you out. You'll sit there. Like, I remember that would go through my head. Like, I can't call my dad if I get arrested. I mean, I better not get arrested. It's stuff like that. Like, my parents would never, they love me, but they're not going to make excuses for bad shit that I did. And this is something I will never understand about this family.
Yeah,
I will.
No, I was just going to say, I'm one of those that's flabbergasted that her sister, there's this idea that I think we all have, that we have to give victims the grace, and maybe her sister's a victim and blah, blah, blah. But, it's one thing to give victims the grace to come forward. It's another when there's still potential crimes being committed to say, we have to stop this. And the sisters had a chance to say, look, ignoring it didn't work, moving across the country, putting your head in the sand. Like, what are these people going to do to stop this? And so far, nothing. I was expecting that her sister's husband's mother, somebody to say, we don't want our in-law or, our daughter's sister to be stealing our ultrasound, as Clayton, she stole Clayton, the ultrasound, to use it to Clayton. Yeah. Nobody's stopping this. It's wild.
Yeah, I talked with one of Laura's friends a while ago, and they told me that, like, Laura's convincing. Like, especially if you're hearing it for the first time, like, why would you doubt somebody? And I give people the pass, but knowing what her sister knows, like, they were always pretty close. Like, at some point you have to think to yourself, like, what's happening here? Like, every guy is just taking advantage of you and harming you physically and emotionally, like, or is it you that's the problem? And so, like, I can understand, like, friends being told certain aspects, but her sister, I never understood why people would give her, let her off the hook, unless she's just got her head buried so deep in the sand. But I still, at that point, like, she would text me and try to, like, convince me to go do things with Laura. So she knows that there was things wrong, but she never helped me out in any way.
Now, I think this is, when the documentary gets made, I think this is a big turning point. Can you describe the moment you realized you had a laptop, and walk us through the process of buying a charger, seeing if it'll even boot up? Like, what was that all like for you? Because this just happened a few weeks ago.
Yeah. I mean, I'll give you the credit for this. You asked me, do I have anything in writing, like the dating contract? She said that verbally to me. She never said anything about, like, she actually flashed a piece of, like, the dating contract of the paper in front of me. But you asked me, do you have anything that she's ever said? I was like, she would show me on her phone. I don't think there's anything. But I was like, I thought to myself, like, I remember there were certain documents where I was like, oh, I saw that. I made her send that to me. So I went and, like, looked on my laptops, and I couldn't find anything. I was like, what about that laptop that I have in storage? Like, that's around. It's like an old MacBook. Like, let me see if that thing has anything. And I couldn't find a charger. I was like, I don't have a charger. I don't know where I would find this charger. They don't sell it anymore. So my wife went on Facebook Marketplace, found somebody with that charger, drove like 20 minutes to go get it, plugged it in, and we were like, oh, we found it all. Like, this goes to the inception of our relationship to the very end, and it has every single thing in iCloud. And I was scared to connect it to the internet, like I told you, because I have, like, on all of my like my new laptops and or my phone, I have everything auto deletes after 2 years. So it's like, if I plug this into the internet, I'm worried that it's going to erase everything. Don't know how to back this up. But yeah, when you told me to go look for it, I got the charger. I started reading through some of the messages, and originally, like, I was looking for just attachments. I wasn't reading, like, the back and forth between Laura and myself. I was just trying to see, like, was there any pregnancy documentation? Was there any documents from doctors, or, like, at the time, like, what could I find? And that's when I found all of, like, the ovarian cancer, ovary removal, the abortion stuff. Like, I found all of that on there. So yeah, thank you, Dave, I think, like, you were a huge, obviously, reason of why that even happened.
We need to thank Gingras.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Oh, yeah.
David Gingras is my favorite attorney.
He really got us to start trying to work a little harder. So you get the laptop. Then how do you react to her affidavit swearing none of it's true? And then how do you react to finding out we got you the money to authenticate it?
When I read her affidavit, and there's one Reddit moderator that I love, and I can't believe I'm like an hour and 20 minutes into this and I haven't mentioned her name, but Mama Nanas, whatever her name is, on Reddit. She is incredible. She is like the person I'm always communicating with. She was the one that originally sent it to me, that this is the affidavit that Laura came out with. I'm sitting there just reading this. I'm like, she's calling me a liar again. She's trying to silence me and make me look like the bad guy, like I'm creating all this. I've been sitting on this evidence forever. Like I want to be famous because of this. And so I sat there, I'm holding the laptop. I was like, oh, what do I do in this situation? And both of you were like, let's get this thing verified. I was like, I have nothing to hide. Like it's all right here on this laptop. I'll do whatever I got to do. And Brad, I think, found somebody like within an hour and was like, you go take it to this individual. And I was like, I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay, like what are they going to pull from this? Are they going to extract like, you know, my wife in labor on this thing? Like what can they pull? What can they pull from this? And so when we took it to the forensics individual, which was like an hour away, like I remember I drove so slow, just being like, don't get in a car accident here. Sitting in a backpack in the back seat, like I'm walking up to the forensics person's office. I'm holding it so tight and I'm explaining it to him like, this is an old laptop. Like, please be careful with this. And he was able to extract all information from it. And like, you two both told me like, you're like, we'll raise the funds, no problem. Like for justice to be served, where it's like directly calling her out. And it's like gonna immediately shoot down all of her lies. Like this is well worth it. And it was, you raised the money incredibly fast to the point where I feel like I've been crying throughout like the entire last 6 months, but I cried when I saw that the money was raised that quickly from all those people. And it just showed the support. Like you see it on Reddit, but like it really showed the support of people had my back. And besides you guys, it was incredible. Like it was such an incredible moment.
It's wild. And now once we hit the $3,000 we needed, we just said, tabs open, guys. The rest goes to Mike. It's can be their funds to travel. It's whatever. How did that feel knowing the money kept coming in?
Well, originally, like we weren't sure if he was going to testify, and that was, I think, like an additional $2,500. I think it was like $2,700 for him to do all the information, another $2,500 for him to show up at court. But when I realized, I was like, when I got the extra money, and I sat there and I thought to myself, like, well, it might go to, the forensics expert to come testify. But when I realized it was coming to me, I was like, this is incredible. It's paying for my flight and my hotel down to Scottsdale. And I was just so thankful that individuals covered my trip and for me to be able to see justice being served.
Yeah, you needed to be there. And it was really powerful, I think, even though you and Greg didn't get to tell your story on the stand because of the time constraints. Yeah. I think it was very powerful for the judge to be able to look over and see you raising your hand in the back and swearing in under oath that you were there and ready to testify. And Greg Woodnick pointed you both out, that you were here and ready to go. And I think that was really powerful. People don't show up like that unless, it's a real important thing for them. And so I just think that I think that it was great that you could be there, and the community is amazing for doing that for you. Casey Cat, thanks for the 10, says the one thing the community has wanted for a long time is for Mike and Greg to have a platform to tell their stories. Now it needs to happen in court. So there is a possibility, Mike, that you will be able to be in court. Can you challenge your protective order? Have you spoken to anybody about that? And if you can't talk about it, that's okay. Just tell us.
Yeah, there'll be a time for me to be able to tell my side of the story. I mean, today we're just scratching the surface. Like there's so much information. Mm-hmm. But I believe there will be a court and/or documentary where we'll all be able to tell our side of the story. And I know that there's things happening in the background, and I know that there's going to be a time where I can really dive deep into every detail without fearing, retaliation against her. So whether it's court or whether it's documentary, I know that day is coming.
Yeah. Kelly Steffi, thanks for the 5, says, would her TEDx talk help with incriminating herself to help with the prosecution and or possible help to help Mike gain his life back from her? Well, I can think of one way, and that is that during that TEDx talk, she claimed that Mike here gave her epilepsy by choking her repeatedly and hurting her. And then in her text messages to Mike that have been verified by an expert as being real and authentic, she tells Mike she got epilepsy from an Uber car crash. So that's hard evidence, a party statement saying 2 conflicting things. And yeah, and she also used a photograph in that TEDx talk that I don't think I had pointed it out to you, Mike, because I knew you hadn't looked at it. But she used one of the photographs that she sent to you claiming to be in the hospital for dehydration or something. She used that as evidence that she was in the hospital after a particularly difficult night with you, is what she said in the TEDx talk.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of things in that TEDx talk where there's direct evidence through your text messages that through her own words, she has a different story. So yeah, I think it's possible.
And I mean, thank God for the community of like finding these differences. I mean, I remember they showed me that photo in the deposition when they were deposing me, and they asked me like, did you do this to her? Like, have you ever seen this photo before? And I sat there and I was like, wow, like it really does look like she had like the, allergic
Allergy
reaction all
eyes.
over her
Yeah.
face and everything. I was like, I've never seen this before. But I guess it was sent to me at some point. Like it was like in August of 2016. And then she said that was actually Iceland in 2017. Who knows? But the point being is she was caught in a web of flies, and doesn't surprise me. She couldn't keep them straight.
Jenny says, Megan, could Omar help Mike? Possibly. Mike, I'm sorry that you've had to live with this. I think, the community has been really looking forward to talking to you for a while. Iron Rabbit says, Mike needs to get with the Tilted Lawyer Omar. We can help crowdfund for you. Yeah, whatever Mike decides to do and whoever he decides to go with, I think the important thing is that he has a war chest to help him, because as unfortunate as it is, justice in America depends on how much money you have to spend on it, unfortunately.
I want Deandra.
I know. I kind of want Deandra too.
Why, I bet you Laura wakes up in a cold sweat thinking of Deandra. Answer the question.
I asked her outside the courthouse. I was like, because I knew she practiced in California. Like Woodnick told me that, and we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm not going to show all my cards right now, but we'll see.
Yeah. No, I get it. Bruce from Oregon, thanks for the 5, says, thanks for the continued investigation, Megan. Thanks for telling your story, Mike. Cheers. Bruce was a trooper out there in the media van, sweating his butt off in a full suit.
Yeah, Bruce was fantastic. Hey, if you ever do need to bring the laptop into the courtroom, let me know if I can get my podcast sticker on the laptop just as a sponsor. I don't know if they can,
like a NASCAR race.
Yeah. a little bit on there, just to get a like button or something. But
you can put whatever sticker you want on there.
Hey, there we go.
Yeah,
Brad suggests a Pelican case, like with the handcuff.
Oh yeah.
So no one can steal it on the way in.
I was really bummed my wife couldn't come out because my wife had already met Greg and Ash, and it was just it's almost like on my end I want her to see that these people exist, because she doesn't consume this content because it's highly triggering, so she only knows what I tell her. So when I get a phone call from people and they'll this happened with Clayton and this happened with other lawyers, they said put me on speakerphone because they wanted to talk to my wife to tell her like how big this was and how valuable it was that she stuck by. So I can't imagine what it was like for your wife to kind of put on a brave face. Did you have to field any questions from her family, or was it kind of just, like did this whole the last 6 months reinvigorate this conversation with the in-laws and all that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, when I was going through the thick of it back in 2018, like when I remember my wife dropped me off for the deposition, I explained it to her family. and I had to explain it again when I went to the renewal in 2020. But even like the weeks leading up to it, they still like weren't. My family knows every aspect of this. Like they know every detail. Her family is like kind of kept it at arm's length. Um, where they thought to me, or they told me that I should just like let her be, don't bother her anymore. I'm like, I'm not bothering her. I think
Oh
it's
no.
it's the exact opposite, where they just think like, hey, if you give her distance, she'll forget about it. But they were supportive when they watched the trial, and they were like, that's exhausting. I hope you're not having to deal with this anymore. I'm like, this is obviously the first domino to fall. So this is definitely going to be on my mind for the next few months. But I've explained it many times to her family. Originally, I could tell there was hesitations with me dating, their niece. But I think they've come around, and they obviously believe me. They know my true character. Like they know who I am. I've been dating their niece for 6+ years. So, but yeah, I've had to explain the story many times to them, but they don't really get the grasp of Laura and like how exhausting she can be, and how she constantly twists words and makes you seem like the bad guy at every step of the way.
That is really, it's good news that they can now have some solid concrete evidence. I know that my parents would have a difficult time with it if my husband had, some restraining order against him for something as serious as domestic violence is. I know that they would have a difficult time. There would always be like a nagging doubt in the back of their minds, and I'm just so glad that this ruling is out there, and this person has been ruled to be a serial perjurer to a felony level. That does not just happen once. This is a person who continually has lied about many, many things. If she's moving her mouth, she's telling lies. And it's so awful that you guys have been caught up in this. Lace says, Mike, your kind heart and sweet demeanor are coming through loud and clear. Prayers that all your dreams come true. Best wishes to you and your family. Louise, thanks for the 5, says, Mike, I'm so glad you finally get to use your voice. Thank you for speaking out and for supporting Clayton and Greg. My heart goes out to you. You know, Samantha wants to know, did you think you would get to testify in the short amount of time that there was?
No, I knew I wasn't going to be testifying.
Yeah.
I her attorney definitely thought I was going to be testifying. I mean, that's why I think he was doing everything he could to possibly rattle me. But I knew it was a slim chance that I was going to be interviewing, and that I was going to be on the stand. And it's just because like 2 hours is just not enough time. Like people are, there's a lot going on in there.
No, and then she cut it down to 50 minutes each, so
Yeah.
it got even shorter. So there goes
Yeah.
the last 10 minutes. Yeah. Jen Lee, thanks for the super chat, says, Dave, thanks for basically exposing her lies. Mike, thank you for sharing. Lots of love to all. Appreciate that, Jenny.
What people need to understand, sorry to interrupt, is when I get a lot of credit, but I had so many people privately message me, call me when I was kind of retracting a little bit early on. I deleted a few videos when I was getting the threats, and I can't pretend like I was 1000% invested. I was contemplating for weeks what moves to make. Private messages from lawyers and phone calls and people reaching out. And then when I finally went to reach out to Mike, I actually saw, because my Instagram's full of nonsense, I actually saw that I had a message request from him. And I was like, oh my gosh, this was a guy whose name we had spoken about so often. And he was still just a name. So it's just been so amazing to hear you tell this foundational story, like the origin story that we have right now of these sort of cons she committed.
Yeah, I think there was one video where you said like how exhausting it is dealing with her, and like you just want to give up. And I said like, oh, that one hit home, because that's how I felt and that's what I did. And obviously it wasn't the right move looking back, but that's when I originally reached out to you. I was like, I know how this feels and whatever I said in that message. But I mean, it was later on, like people were acting like I was sitting there plotting with you for a long time.
Oh
But
no, it was very
it
late
was,
on. It was like well
yeah,
overdue. Yeah.
yeah.
And the only reason Clayton really hammered through the legal system to prove non-paternity was because he saw the Medium articles she was writing about me, and he just saw that your playbook, which would work with most people, which is kindness and moving on, wasn't going to work with her. And I think that's where it was kind of like, we need to fight her fight. And that's why Meg and all these other lawyers and bull sharks kind of came out. And I think it's a good combination. We've got your kindness, and then we have, people like Clayton who might have been kind initially, but it was like, no, we see what's going to happen from a mile away, only because you could have never imagined there'd be a TEDx talk about you. Which, by the way, I would love separately to maybe privately watch that with you and like pause just to reiterate everything so we can recorrect the story. I would love very much for the first several pages of Google searches about you to be all praise. I would really enjoy that for you.
I would too. Yeah. If you give me some time to think about the TEDx thing, because like I said, the first 30 seconds I had to turn it off, just knowing how ridiculous it was. And so maybe I'll be open to that in due time, but as of right now, I probably won't. I'll just be sitting there crying the whole time, just knowing just how this person's tried to ruin my reputation. So.
God. Yeah. And I don't know if she thought she was protecting herself by not using your name when we can all, everyone can see public documents that are filed in court and deduce who she's talking about with the trip to Iceland, etc. I had just seen a super chat in here that I should pull up, because Chris wants to know, was any part of the Iceland story true or all lies? And he hasn't really seen her entire story about that, but certainly the dramatic parts of it were untrue. I don't know. The one part you probably haven't heard, but did make me laugh. Was her tale of wandering around aimlessly with no coat in a snowstorm.
Wait, that's what she says on there?
Yes, that at some point she left the hotel or running around in a snowstorm and got lost and was in an alleyway, sinking to the ground in a pile of snow in a sleeveless dress. And that really made me chuckle, because it was so Amber Heard-esque, staring at the dirty carpet, all of that, those really ridiculous details that.
Is she saying that I took like her bag? Is that what?
No,
I took her clothes, or what is?
No, I think she was just saying that she was trying to get away, and got lost,
okay.
and she was lost in a snowstorm. Did she go missing in a snowstorm while you were in Iceland that you know of?
No.
You don't say. I'm shocked. I tell
so
you,
ridiculous.
Like, I totally get. Like, I've always said this regarding the stuff you've gone through. I've gone through a tiny percentage of it, so I almost feel like I have the vaccine to her bullshit, right? Because I've only gone through a tiny bit, so I can't fully relate. But when she made a Facebook video about me where she was crying, I still haven't watched that. And people were sending it to me, not realizing how painful it was to see somebody weaponize all this crazy stuff. Luckily for me, when you Google my name, you get to see all of these stories and receipts and this that you didn't have the luxury of having. What is so scary with your situation is it ends, it's quiet, you moved on, and then boom, chicken soup for the soul, TEDx talk. Were you worried that would pick up steam and become a bigger thing, or did you think that was the finality of it?
That's a good question. I didn't know about chicken soup until I think like February of this year or March. I had no idea. I still don't even really know what that is, but I'm not going to give it a click. But with the TEDx talk, I was always, when Woodnick originally told me about it during the Gillespie thing, like I was really concerned about it. And that's why I originally went and tried to watch it. And I saw the 6-figure number of views that it had. And I was definitely worried, like, you type in my name, it's the first thing that pops up. And then she's got all those documents essentially stating what I did. And obviously it's a completely fabricated story, but yeah, I was definitely worried that would pick up steam, that a company would look at it, or friends would look at it, or whoever would look at it. I was always petrified of it. And that's why I'm just shocked that it's still up at this point.
Me too. And it isn't that they haven't been notified. They have been multiple times. And they're just not being responsive.
I have hopefully my last question, and apologies if you'd covered this because I missed the beginning, but the whole basis of her Iceland story is that you were this horrible person on a flight. When we talked, you had mentioned that it's because you told her you still don't trust her. Was she manipulating you at that point with hysteria? Like, did you trigger her by saying you didn't trust her? And what kind of what was the combustible moment there?
Yeah. So that video is multiply that by 10, and that's what she was on that flight.
Oh my God.
You have to imagine, we're on a red-eye flight. We're in a tube 30,000 feet in the air, and and so she was crying hysterically, but leading up to the trip, I'll kind of give you this.
Tell me you're not sitting in the middle seat, please.
I mean, it was WOW. It was like a WOW Airlines. It was like a Spirit. So I'm sure we fit right in there.
She stayed for the flight on a budget airline.
Airline. But it was.
Didn't even do Iceland Air.
So leading up to the trip, she bought the tickets and then originally said hey, you can go. I bought the tickets for us, as an apology for everything I put you through, with self-harm and all these things leading up. And so I was already going on a trip, and my family was like, hey, you should just go on it. I think it'd be really fun. They told that, Laura told us all the things that she's going to be doing on this trip. And then probably about a week before, 2 weeks before the trip, she's like, hey, I think just you should go. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. I'll go by myself. And then 48 hours before the trip, her family and my family both said hey, you two should do it together. I think it's a once in a lifetime experience. And I told them, I was like, I just don't Laura kept wanting me to say that I loved her and that I trusted her and that I moved past what had just happened. And I mean, 2 weeks before, she had told me that she'd faked the pregnancies, that, her dad told me that she exaggerates a lot of her stories. And then, he said, do whatever you have to for the next few weeks and I'll get you out of it. So I'm going off of, I don't trust her. I'm not ready to be in a committed relationship with her. And then they're kind of pushing this on me. And so when we get on the trip, she says she's going to come. I agree, obviously major regrets to that. But we get on the flight, and within I feel right when the wheels took off, it's just hammering of questions back and forth to me. It's let's talk about this. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about this. And I just kept telling her, I was I'm not ready to be in a relationship to where I'm talking about this publicly nonstop and posting photos, because I just don't trust you, especially what you just did to me. And she starts crying hysterically on the flight, to the point where people are all turning around. If I go out to a restaurant and my daughter acts up, who's a toddler, I immediately remove her from the situation and say hey, this isn't right. I gotta walk away here. On the flight, she's crying hysterically to the point where I can't calm her down. I'm constantly I was why don't we you read a book? I'll leave my headphones on and watch a show. And she kept pulling my headphones off and asking me more questions.
Oh God.
And so I finally was I think it's best if I go and I sit at a different part. It's a full flight, knowing it's a budget airline. So I go and I sit in the bathroom for a couple of hours. But I mean, the flight was very long. It was 5-6+ hours. So I came back, after she had been crying hysterically and being in the bathroom, and she kept at it again. And I just finally told her, I was listen, let's try to have a good time, but stop asking me these questions. And so when I sit there and I think about the napkin and all that, everything that Laura's ever done has been a lie. And so I don't know if the napkin was ever true, but like if I'm just a random person and I'm listening to this conversation where the guy seems emotionally disconnected and somebody who's obviously crying and asking for help and that they're sorry and that they want to be in a committed relationship and do I trust them? I'm saying like, no, 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 no. It might sound like it's poorly like looking at me. So I've never been able to like actually figure out if the napkin person is true. Like I also don't, like, I've moved on in life, so I don't really care anymore.
I'm
But
surprised that the flight attendants didn't try to intervene at some point and
they did. They came by
you.
and they didn't come by and move us. Like there was never like yelling on my part. It was just her crying hysterically. And they came by and asked her to quiet down because it's a red-eye flight and that people are sleeping. I don't do well with those type of things. And I mean, I just remember her crying hysterically. And I looked up and I looked around, everybody was turned around, like looking at us. And I'm like, I have another 5+ hours of this. Like, how do I solve this? And
how did she react to the flight attendants asking her to quiet down?
She said she would, I think is what I remember. And I just told her, like, I just kept telling her, I was like, you have to calm down. You have to calm down. And I think she ended up taking, I don't actually remember. I was going to say like a medication, but I actually don't remember if she did. But yeah, I remember the flight attendants coming by, and I think they came back actually twice, if I remember correctly, and they asked her to calm down both times. So, yeah. It was a crazy
Deb
experience.
pointed something out very interesting here. She pulled your headphones off. Who is the one who is being physical? Yeah, that's aggressive.
They were like the big over the ear headphones, like that, like quiet, like that made everything else quiet. I think they were noise canceling. And she kept pulling them off to ask me something. And I was like, please stop.
She almost had one of those temper tantrums on the stand June 10th when she stomped her little feet and pushed her chair back and said, "That's not fair. It's not fair." I thought we were going to have a full-blown, plane scenario in the courtroom. That's a very good question, chat. Joss wants to know, were there real tears during the plane tantrum?
I mean, if you consider like that last video that you played real tears, then
nope, didn't see one.
I wouldn't. I think it's like her just trying to get her way and like trying to gaslight me into saying something. But I always stood my ground in that sense, where I didn't just give right into what she was asking for. I mean, I obviously I did with the trips, but when she wanted me to do something or post a photo of us or say that I love her or anything like that, I kind of stood my ground and I just told her, like, I'm not in that position yet to say those things and or to be saying that on publicly.
Well, those of you who are still with us, all 2,400 of you, wow. Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. We are almost at 45,000, and that would be fantastic if we could hit the 45,000 subscribers soon. I appreciate you being here. We do have to get to a bunch of super chats, so I know that there's probably some in here for you, Mike. I'll try and weed through them. And
I gotta dip out. So
okay,
let me go before Mike. God bless you, my guy. I'm really glad you've been able to share your story.
Thank you so much, Dave. I really, really appreciate it. And I've told you this multiple times. Like, thank you for always being my voice and a supporter of us. I really, really appreciate it. And I don't know what I would do without you.
Thanks, buddy. You're in good hands with this crowd. Meg, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye, everyone.
All right, Dave. Thanks. Dave Neal, everybody. Make sure you get over there and subscribe and go to his Patreon too. I'm a paying member over at Dave's Patreon and I love it there. It's a great little community. So make sure you go support him. By the way, if you're on my locals chat, meganfox.locals.com, there's a live chat, the Wednesday live chat. If you have a question for Mike, I'm prioritizing those questions. You can put them in the live chat. So now is your last chance to do that before we wrap it up. A couple of super chats for you. Chris Jenner says, "I want to cry right now. We will support you forever, Mike." And I'm sure that feels good to hear. Elden says, "We support you, Mike. We won't let her silence you." And, there's thousands of people, Mike, literally thousands of people who are just appalled by that, or they're appalled by it. Cat Lady Ballerina says, I read the transcript from the renewal hearing and was appalled. They renewed it on her word. And we all know what her word is worth. Absolutely nothing. Mike, you're not alone, says Rogue Mama. Justice Crew has your back. And it must feel pretty good not to be alone anymore, not to feel like you can't talk about this or point people to something that gives them an alternative point of view. Zoo2 Fanthrax, thanks for the 5. We love and believe Mike. Justice for Mike, Greg, and Clayton. That's right. Justice for all victims of false accusations, because false accusations are every bit as harmful as a attack, as any other, as domestic violence. It's the same. It's violence against someone else. Look at the damage that was done to Mike's career. Who knows where he would be now without that over his head. Emma Washington, thanks for the 5. I guarantee both of your dads are very proud of you and your strength and resilience. I was thinking about that too when you were talking about your dad, losing your dad at a young age, and then your stepfather as well. I truly believe that our loved ones are still with us and see what is going on. And I feel like that yesterday was a really big day for them, for you. And it's just it's very bittersweet, but I think that they know. Marmite, thanks for the 5. Just want to give you a huge hug. Your voice is being heard here all the way in the UK. This is an international story, Mike. You have fans across the pond now, maybe even some in Iceland. Unhung Hero says, at least they didn't meet at the AutoZone. Very funny, Unhung
By
Hero.
the way, regarding Iceland, I had no idea. I've never watched Clayton's Bachelor season, but it's on my to-do list. But I didn't know that he also had a trip to Iceland. And so we were talking about Reykjavik, and there's only like the one place you can go in Iceland, that we both had these stories with him on The Bachelor and me with Laura, just how small the world
Interesting.
is.
I still haven't watched Clayton's season. I need to do that because I need to
watch it together. That's one
Yeah.
thing I'm willing to watch. I don't know about the TEDx talk right now, but I'm willing
Let's
to watch that
his
one.
season together. That'll be fun. Maybe we do a locals thing. We'll watch it together. Let's see. Mike, I was very emotional, says Sheila T, seeing you and your wife in the hallway at the courthouse. I believe you and support you in obtaining justice.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's amazing. Rachel Guerra, thanks to the 5. My first time ever doing a super chat. Oh, thank you. Think this is the perfect occasion. Yeah, me too. And this is a good time. Blah, blah, blah. Thanks for the 2. Says thoughts on Napkin Lady, which we already got to. We're not sure what to think. I mean, I've gone back and forth on it myself. I've gone back and forth on is it real? Is it not real? I mean, the woman, she says who it is does exist. There's an alleged affidavit written by her in the court. I tried to contact her, unless she's really made up this entire persona, including like a web page and everything for some fake AI personality. I don't know. But I tried to contact her and never received a response. It's interesting that some of the people that she's used to do these things, like Joe Cotchett, where I believe that she fabricated emails from him, and he's a real attorney. He doesn't respond, and he won't talk about it. And a lot of people who she's done this to won't talk about it, like the agent. And I think it's because they have these ties to her family, and they're worried the same way you were about getting on the wrong side of this family that has a lot of connections and so they'd rather just let you think that they did these things or were involved somehow in her big giant scam than they are to tell the truth, which is really sad. She has so many people who cover for her.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even know what to say.
Yeah, I know I know. Well, we'll keep going. Massborn, thanks for the 2. Mike, you are a DV survivor, and as a survivor of DV and SA, you've given us hope and courage to speak. We thank you and hope more survivors come forward. God bless you and your wonderful wife. So this is interesting. I don't know if you've ever thought about yourself as a DV survivor, but a lot of what she has done to you is considered emotional abuse, emotional terrorism. And that's a heavy topic. I'm sure you've delved into it with therapists, but I do hope that you definitely get beyond it. Casey Lee, thanks for the 5. We ride at dawn at any hour. We got you, Mike. This woman will get her just desserts. It certainly is looking that way in Arizona. Kelly Steffi, thanks for the 5. My daughter was stillborn, and I've experienced another woman who faked pregnancy and cancer. We took her to Dr. Phil. Oh, interesting. Dr. Phil has a lot of those. BS, thanks for the 10. Thank you, Megan and Dave, for helping and giving Mike strength to come forward. These men deserve vindication in their day in court. Women like this need to be stopped. Truth always prevails. Well, not always. Sometimes men go to prison for years and years and years, and they never get vindicated on false accusations. There are men sitting in prison right now. There are people in prison for false accusations right now who may never be vindicated. So when we do come across the evidence, we need to put it out there. Taylor C, thanks for the 20, says, thank you for sharing, Mike. And we appreciate you, TC. Appreciate you very much. Astrology Crockpot says, lawyer man wrote a new article. I know. I'm sure Dave will get to it. Or I think IT Goatee Brad is considering reading it on his channel. I won't be able to do anything after this because it's becoming a late day for me here. Chris Jenner says, not once did I believe Laura about Clayton, Greg, or you either. Her toxicity is loud, and I get how she dangled the carrot to guilt and manipulate you. I'm about to turn the air conditioner on in here. It's getting toasty. It's going to be loud. It's going to be loud. Just get used to it. There's going to be a fan. That's Pamela Fanderson, folks. We have Pamela Fanderson has joined the program. Let's see. Hi, Meg. Check your Venmo. Yes, Tammy, I did get it, and I need to read it out, and I will do that. Let's see. Let's pull up the Venmo. Tammy, I appreciate you for sending me Venmo chats. It's always nice to get Venmos because Google can't get their dirty, greasy little hands on it. Tammy says, thank you for this interview with Mike. I definitely want you in my corner if I was in trouble. Well, I would want all of you in my corner. I'll tell you that much. The audience is really it's a major part of this. And it's great to have all of you helping out in such an amazing way. Do you find, Jen Lee wants to know, did you find that women believed you more than men?
Did I find women believed me?
Like in your life, that women believed you more than the men in your life, or was it the other way around?
I don't know. I grew up with, since my dad passed away at an early age, I grew up with all women. So, I had my mom, my grandma, my sister, even 2 female dogs. So I always felt like I related really well with women. But I don't know how to answer that question. I feel like I've always been an honest, trustworthy individual. So I think both sides have always looked at me equally.
I think maybe she meant in this situation, like when you had to explain this story to people.
Yeah.
Did you feel?
I think men believed me more than
that doesn't surprise me. Yeah. That doesn't surprise, because a lot of men have been through something similar, or at least experienced a personality like this where they can see it. And I think women have a tendency to believe other women without question, and that's maybe understandable, but.
And that's even like when I talked about like one of Laura's friends reaching out to me and having a conversation with me. They said, like, why would you doubt your friend that's saying these things?
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say men definitely believe me a lot more than women regarding the situation.
The Tilted Lawyer has weighed in. Omar, thanks for being here. It says, Laura's playbook happens way more than you think. The fact that this is happening feels like a reset of how these cases are litigated and treated. Oh boy, Omar, I hope you are right about that. That's worth its own live stream to talk about that as a topic. Because if we can do a reset and bring more equality to these cases where we don't look at a man like Mike and we say he's intimidating and obviously guilty because he's 6'4" and so much bigger than this little 5'2", 91-pound woman who looks weak. And we need to cut that out. You cannot judge a book by its cover, and you cannot judge a person by their physical stature, one way or the other. It turns out this little 5'2", 91-pound woman is a horror. She is a terrorizer. And in this 6'4" guy over here is like, he's a teddy bear. So it is not okay that the courts have this built-in bias. We need to do a reset. I agree with you. I would love to talk to you about that, Omar. Jack's mom, do you think there was someone before Mike? Mike, do you know if there was somebody before you? Did she ever talk about ex relationships with you?
Yeah, she said she was in an abusive relationship before me.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh no.
She said that's what she said. She said that she was in an abusive relationship before me.
Oh,
But I didn't ever ask like prying questions or anything like that. So
interesting. And she didn't like volunteer the gory details? I'm surprised.
I mean said that he sexually assaulted her. Like I think that's like one of the things where he would, without going into too much detail, like he would take advantage of her in that sense, is what she would tell me. But yeah, I never asked a lot of questions. Being a typical guy, I felt like I'm just not going to pry this open. But obviously, looking back, I wish I would have asked questions regarding more details.
Squid Pro Quo from the locals chat, meganfox.locals.com wants to know, Mike, how did it feel to find out she had done this to multiple other men? I know we kind of touched on that,
Yeah.
but I mean, what is that like? You kind of talked about when you found out she did it to Clayton, but when you found out about Greg, I mean, when you got that first call from Woodnick, right? He reached
Yeah.
out to you. Were you shocked?
Oh, shocked. Oh, yeah. Actually, I wasn't shocked because it was such a weird feeling because like you're not happy, but like you know that somebody is also going through something that you've gone through, and like that you're not a liar at the end of the day. And um, but when Woodnick called me, like at the time, I was still petrified of Laura. I was like, I don't want to get in her crosshairs. Um, but I also felt good that somebody else like was a victim like myself, which is sad to say like out loud, like even sitting here saying it. But like Greg, Clayton, and I have talked about it. Like we're very fortunate that others were part of the situation, because not only do we have like a bond of friendship, but that it shows a pattern from her side.
Yeah.
So it's much
Yeah.
easier to
One of
explain.
the first things you said when you came to the media van after the court case, and it really hit me hard, because I didn't consider that this is how you felt. I don't know why. Probably because you are so big and tall and strong. And I wouldn't imagine that this was the feeling that you had towards Laura, but you said you had been terrified of her, that you were
Oh, yeah.
living in fear of her. That really hit me in some kind of way. Has that fear dissipated at all for you?
No, it hasn't. It's actually like I keep looking over at my phone because I'm worried that something will happen just by even me coming on here and talking about it. I've like tried to stay kind on this, and meaning like I don't want to badmouth her or give her like put any gasoline on the fire, but I'm worried what she'll do, and she'll twist my words into saying that I said when I didn't say it. She still terrifies me. Like in Scottsdale, when I was there, I was looking over my shoulder left and right, and it's not like a fun way to live when you're constantly having to think like, will I run into her at this restaurant, and or if I go in public with these guys, will she put the pieces together of where we are? So I used to be really, when we lived in the Bay Area, I used to be really scared like that she would do something to my wife or my daughter. But now that we're states apart, I don't really think about it as much. But Scottsdale, I definitely thought about it.
I'm sorry that you feel that way. I hope that does go away at some point. I hope that, there's a time when you don't have to live in fear of what she might do. And I feel like the end is near to that. I feel like there's going to be something that comes of this decision, whether it's this decision itself or a prosecution, that will put an end to it. Ace, thanks for the 5, says, at the end, I would love to ask Mike a little bit about himself. What does he do for fun? What makes him enjoy life? He is so much more than Laura Owens and her lies. That is a great question.
Great question.
I'd love to
I
hear
love
this
that.
too.
I am a dad and a husband, and I essentially dedicate my free time to spending as much time as I can with my daughter. I'm your average standard guy. I would say like your average Joe. I love to go play golf with my buddies. I love to, watch sports. But the majority of my time, like right when I get off this call, I'm going out and relieving our nanny. I'm going to take my daughter on a play date for the next couple of hours. So like that's probably go get ice cream and do things like that.
Oh,
So
that's fun. And
yeah,
little one, you have a toddler, right? Little ones are so
yeah.
fun.
I mean, I've got a 3.5-year-old,
Yeah.
and hopefully one on the way soon. So we'll see.
BS, thanks for the 10, says, I'm sure a lot of people believed her. She is good at manipulating because she is good looking. She's a female predator. They do exist. Yes, they do. I'm glad the tides are shifting and these men can speak. Me too. Rendrell says, God, to be on a plane with a giant crying adult is a nightmare. I can't even imagine that. I mean, it's bad enough when you're on a plane with a crying baby and people are looking at you and, you can't do anything to stop the crying baby. But a crying adult, not even a nice stranger can come along and offer to take them from you and calm them down. You know what I mean? Like
Totally.
I've had men do to me with children, with my babies. I've had some very kind-hearted men come up and say, "Hey, let me walk the baby," and they'll do it, and the babies calm right down, and it's amazing. But you can't do that with an adult. I can't even imagine. Yako, thanks for the 5, says humor and satire can alleviate anxiety. The safest and most entertaining way for Mike to experience the TEDx talk may be a Dave and Megan roast of it. It is pretty bad, Mike. It's pretty laughable. It's very dramatic. It truly is.
This is convincing me I need to watch it now with you. I'll do it. I'll probably do it with you both. Like,
do it with us.
If you're willing to do it, I would be willing.
I will absolutely sit with you and watch it and roast her.
Okay.
It is comedy. It's comedy, and I think it's funny that we can all see through it at this point. We see.
Yeah.
I don't know how anybody ever found her believable. The very first time I watched it, I was like, "Oh my God, this is worse than Amber Heard." But at least it was entertaining. Kellyanne, thanks for the Canadian 15, says, just wanted to send some love to Mike and his fam jam from near Toronto. I am a PD communicator and dispatcher. My entire platoon has been watching live. We support you, Greg, and of course, Clayton.
Love this. So cool. Thank you.
That's
really
so
appreciate
cool.
It.
Robin says, big love to Mike. Thank you so much for the 2. Cindy says, I share these men's stories with my 20-year-old son as a cautionary tale. As a mother, I can't imagine. Yeah. Tough. Jojo, thanks for the 20s. Thank you, Mike. Keep telling your story. There are so many more going through something similar. Just to know they can overcome this type of evil, that someone will believe them, will be hope. Yeah, I agree. And, if you ever... Maybe the 3 of you and Greg and Clayton, maybe someday you'll go on a tour and talk to people about this. I think, Clayton already does his speaking circuit. He was doing a speaking circuit on mental health and, this false accusation thing and learning how to overcome this type of adversity. It is really difficult. And maybe it could be helpful for people who are going through the same thing. I don't know. But I would love to see the 3 of you do something together.
Clayton's so smart and cerebral, and it's really good about, extracting your feelings. So I could definitely see him. Greg, he's hysterical. So I don't know. He would be funny to watch and do that. But we'll see. I think it's right up Clayton's alley. I think he'd be phenomenal.
Yeah. I think Clayton would do good. Wendy A, thanks for the 5. Can she be prosecuted for the 911 calls? That was nonsense. Yeah. Will they do it, though? No. I mean, you can be prosecuted for false police reports, and it just remains to be seen. If the county prosecutor decides to investigate, she doesn't just have to investigate what the judge has put forward. She can go back and investigate all the calls, all the reports, because if she lied about one thing, she may have lied about other things. She could add on all kinds of charges. We don't know. We don't know what she will do, but Dave and I have a plan about that, which we'll go over with you guys soon. Those of you in Maricopa County, though, this weekend, Saturday, the 22nd at City Hall, you can go and meet Rachel Mitchell, who is the county prosecutor, and you can introduce yourself and say, hey, I want you to prosecute this case that Judge Mata referred to you for prosecution. Please investigate Laura Owens and please prosecute, because we want justice to reign in Maricopa County, and we're tired of our tax dollars being wasted on Laura Owens's misuse of police resources. Ida B, thanks for the whatever this is, money. $7. Thank you. From a little town in Denmark, sending support to you, Mike, and to Gigi and CE. Appreciate the letting me know what kind of currency that is. I never know. Jay, thanks for the 10. I'm glad you found happiness with your wife and baby and got to know real love and support. Mike, you show and exhibit love and strength. I will support and legal action you want to take. And I know that you'll let us know whenever you have need for that, and we will get right on it.
Thank you.
Mike, please ask the TEDx to take down the talk. Listen, Rec, we've all asked. And maybe Mike could send a letter. I don't know if that would help. We'll see. Debbie, thanks for the 5. Jealous of your curly hair. Well, thank you very much. Alex P, thanks for the 10. You're winning by coming through this with strength of character and your kindness intact, and by living a beautiful life with integrity, traits that Laura can never have. Thanks for being here. Wendy says, LawTube has Mike's back now. That's true. That's true. And I mean, this isn't over by a long shot. Kelly says, can send links to show 4-inch binder of threats. Yeah, there's a whole lot of it. Mike is such a nice, sweet guy, sending good vibes, says Wendy A. Thank you, Wendy. Appreciate that. And MM says, I'm so sick of women taking advantage of the system. I'm 5'2", 145 pounds, and I just know that I'm more terrifying than Mike. Me too. I am way scarier than this guy is. Way scarier. And it's so upsetting that the court systems don't recognize, there are different personalities, and being female or male has nothing to do with it. Happy that Mike is getting his story out. Stay strong. We have your back. And obviously, Laura thinks I'm scarier too, because guess who she hasn't contacted? Oh, yeah, that's me right here. Mark Safe from Laura Owens Threats, baby. Why is that? Because I am unthreatenable. That's why. And, I'm scarier. That just is what it is. Tammy Fayette, thanks for the 2. Mike, I appreciate you here speaking up. Thank you. Mindy says, email sent to the county attorney. Well, fantastic. Good for you. Justice for Mike. We ride it. Dawn, says Mama Meaty. Thank you for that. Cherry, thanks for the super sticker. Appreciate that. Unhung Hero says, is she the one pursuing the Bauer accuser? Yeah, she is. The county attorney, the same one, Maricopa County, is the same one going after Trevor Bauer's false accuser, which is another reason why I think we have every reason to believe that this could go positively for justice, because Rachel Mitchell is very interested in false accusers. So let's just keep that going.
It's the same person, the same DA?
Yes, sir.
Wow.
Same county.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Amazing to hear that. I love this.
Yes,
Okay.
same woman. And because of the research I did in her background, now I understand why she decided to take that case. She is a victim's advocate. She's been working with sexually abused women and children her entire career. Imagine how upsetting it is to a woman like that, who has been in the room with and in the courtroom fighting for the rights of actually physically and sexually assaulted women and children, to have a false accuser take up the time and resources of her county, right, away from those women and children. And that's what Laura Owens has done. That is what she has done. There's no difference between what she did to Clayton and Greg and you. There's no difference between what Trevor Bauer's false accuser did. So I think we have a real good shot at it. And I'm going to stay positive about it. And I'm going to encourage everybody to contact Rachel Mitchell and, tell her why it's important to you. She's an elected official. She wants to hear from the public. That's what she's there to do, is to serve the public. And those of you, especially in Maricopa County, write letters. Send snail mail, actual stamps. This is what I want it to look like in her office. Can I show you? Let me show you. This is what I want it to look like.
You've got mail.
I want it to look just like that. I want there to be bags and bags and mail people, just couriers coming in and dumping more letters on her desk. And I think we can do it. I mean, her address for her county office is publicly available. It is on her website. I'm going to help you guys. I'll write up what I normally do. I will write up a guide for you, whether you're in state, out of state, or out of the country even, because even if you're in another country, you have a right to contact an American elected official and say, the world is watching you. The world is watching what Maricopa County will do. The world is interested in justice, and we think that perjurers ought to be actually prosecuted instead of ignoring it and letting perjurers and serial liars affect the lives of so many. IT Goatee Brad, by the way, is going to go live when I finish. I'm going to redirect you. Do you have your redirect turned on, Brad? I hope. Okay, he says that he's got the redirect on, so I will make sure that I redirect you over to IT Goatee Brad. He is going to read through the new blog by David Gingras. I have no idea what it says. I don't even want to think about it. Let's see. Where are you, IT Goatee?
I thought he was away from internet in Italy or wherever
Yeah.
he was.
Yeah. Apparently he is not. Why is this not working? Brad, it's not letting me choose it. That's weird. Hold on. It's not letting me. It's coming up as grayed out, so you have to make sure that you turn it on and maybe refresh or something, because I see it, but I can't click on it. So make sure you turn it on, and it's still grayed out. It says redirect privileges needed. Ask IT Goatee to add you to their live redirect list in community settings. All right. Yeah, we're almost finished, Brad. So if you want to just go ahead and go live, maybe that will help. But I think you still have to turn it on in settings or I won't be able to redirect. All right. Catherine Imhoff, thanks for the 10, says, does Laura Owens ever sleep? Well, it's a mystery. We don't know. Could you give us the email for the DA, please? Yeah, sure. Her Twitter account, by the way, you can tweet her, is Rachel where is it? Mitchell. Where is she? Rachel, hold on. Rachel Mitchell. There she is. It's Rachel 1 Mitchell, MITCHELL, at Rachel 1 Mitchell on Twitter. And then Rachel Mitchell.
I just discovered the chat on the right side here of my screen.
Oh, you didn't see that?
I had no idea about all this coming through. This is great.
Yeah, it's fun. You can see most of them. You can't see Rumble because that doesn't come up on there, but we have a couple of Rumble chatters over in the Rumble ghetto over there. I haven't forgotten about you, Rumble people. And if you go to, so I don't think she has a form on her website. So I'll drop the website in the chat and you can go there and you can fill out an email form. There's no email directly, but you can call and you can write letters. If you go to the contact page, you can find an address for her county address, the county attorney's address, and you can write her letters. And I highly suggest writing physical letters. And you want it to look like that Miracle on 34th Street, scene where just bags of letters. So, and don't worry, we're going to do another stream coming up here soon where I'm going to give you all the information and also a guide to how to do this. But right now, we got to let Mike get back to his day. So let me see if there's any more questions in here for you. And if not, I will let you go. No. Okay. I think we've covered them all. Mike, quick. Get out before you have more to answer. No, I'm just kidding. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here. I sure appreciate you.
Thank you, Megan, for all you've done for me. I mean, you and I have been talking for months. One, thank you for letting me come on here and speak. But I just want you to know that couldn't have done any of this without you. From helping me, just being emotionally there for me, being a soundboard. And I hope at the end of the day, I wouldn't be here without you in terms of what I've been able to contribute. So you raising the funds for me, you talking with me, you helping me, you reading the text with me. Thank you for everything. And I hope you know that. Welcome. And I'm sorry that I've pulled you away from your family late at night and early in the morning, but
No,
Thank you.
no, it was my pleasure. It was my pleasure. I just thank you for coming forward. It was really, I just hope that other people, if there are other people out there, other victims, that you can hear Mike saying that it's been a blessing to him to be a part of this community, that we've been here for him, and we will help you too. There's nothing that we wouldn't do, and no length we wouldn't go to help other victims get justice in this case, because it's not fair that your life should be ruined or impacted in any way by false accusations. And we care about that. We care about you. We care about the truth. We care about justice. Mike, thank you so much.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we'll talk again soon, and you're welcome back anytime. And I would love to do a fun watch Clayton's season with you. Maybe we'll do on a local stream sometime.
100%. I'm game for that, because he's already given me the 411 that he's not, that he does not look very good on that season. So happy to watch it with you, and we can make fun of him together.
That's wonderful. All right, Mike, you take care.
Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate it.
Bye-bye. All right, everybody, I'm going to spam the chat with Brad's. Brad, your link is just not working. I don't know why. It's still coming up as grayed out. So here, everybody go click on Brad's live stream. He's going to read through Dingus's new blog. Are you doing a dramatic reading? What's on the menu? Reading. All right. Well, everybody go over there. I don't know why it's not working. The redirect is just not turning on.
Silly redirects.
Yeah. But that's okay. You guys go over there, and I'll see you later. We are going to... Oh, wait. I have a couple more super chats to get to. Oh, Saving Grace. Thanks for the 2. LO is selling tack on Facebook. Lost a lot of weight. Yeah, I saw that. It was really funny because somebody goes, it's a bad day to be a pair of riding boots in the casita yesterday. And then sure enough, within an hour, there were some riding boots posted on Facebook for sale. I was dying laughing. I don't know if that was photoshopped or whatever, but it was still a good joke. Cat Lady Ballerina, thanks to the 2. Did Mike see or interact with Napkin Lady? I think we went over that. He said no. Rach Hunting, thanks for the 2. Could she be charged for defamation in the TED Talk? Well, anybody could sue for defamation. He could certainly sue her. Whether or not he can collect anything is the question. Whether it would be worth it is the big question. Sabine Simone, thanks for the 5. If you need and want it, and we will be there for you. We'll contribute to. Oh, I read that one already. Thank you again for it. You got a double whammy. Wuro, thanks for the super sticker. Appreciate that. As for TED Talks, remember they had a speaker that says good Lord, a PDF file was a sexual orientation. They were just born that way. They give the dregs of society a platform. That's true. I saw that. It was bad. The Zohan, thanks for the 2. Letter mailed from a single dad in a similar fight. Zohan, I'm so sorry to hear that, but thank you for mailing the letter. Thank you. That means so much to Mike and Clayton and Greg that you would take time out of your day to write a letter, put a stamp on it, and walk to the mailbox. It means a hell of a lot. So I appreciate it. King Bob says, sent you an email, a video of Laura on a flight with Mike. Oh, no. I'll have to look at that in a little bit. Let's see. Wendy A, thanks for the 5. This DA needs to bring it all in. Shows pattern and motive. That's right. It sure does. All right. That's it. Everybody get over to Brad. Here's the link again. I'm going to put it in the chat. Make sure you get over there if you want to see Dingus's new blog read in a ridiculous, dramatic, overdone Disney villain voice. You want to go see it. Get over there. All right, guys. See you later. What should we leave you with today? Oh, I know. Let's go with Fiverr. We haven't seen this one in a while.
She said she's not looking for a ring or anything classy. All she needs is for someone to care to ask her to go steady. She's so ready for that leather jacket. She will hack it with internet manipulations and a variety pack of stipulations. She said, don't try to deny it. You clearly faked it. I'm pregnant, maybe. It's not a Fiverr, babe. It's not a Fiverr, babe. It's not a Fiverr, baby.
Never saw this. What are we seeing here? What's this? HEVN? Is this are you seeing this I'm literally, I can't unsee it. What the hell is that?
Some babies, but there's some ladies from a blog. I'm not some slob. I'm on the job.
It says Fiverr.
She hired Fiverr.
Oh no! Oh, hold on. Okay, hold on. Hold on. This is why you do it live. This.
She's got control of her daddy's funding and a lawyer scheming. But I know the truth, she never deleted. I'm not some slob, I'm on the job. Truth deep diver. She hired Fiverr. 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 She hired Fiverr.
That's it. That's what it is. That's it. That's what it is. That's it. That's what it is.
I'm not some slob.
No, I mean, Meg, what? Unbelievable that we just figured this out.